This is a momentous occasion in the Cinema Color podcast, ladies and gentlemen. Today, your buddies Butch and Rob, and also Rob and Butch and Butch and Butch and Rob, bring you the last and final of the original series, Star Trek movies, for your listening pleasure, putting the capstone on a project that we started a while back to cover all 6 of the movies. This is Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country from 1991. We're here to talk about it with you and for you and towards you. This is Butch, and my buddy Rob is on the other end of the line. Rob, what's going on up there in Bellingham today?
Watch them take the pleasure from the Star Trek. That's sort of a Blade Runner crossover. Yeah, good morning, Butch. I have just woken up, so I'm excited. Also, we're finally going to get our definitive ranking of the Trek movies.
Yeah.
The original ones. I'm happy to report that I got a little bit of sleep, and it's a sunny day, and so far the cats playing in their catacombs in the yard are behaving after a week of escape attempts. I've got this contraption they can't get out of. It's a big mesh monstrosity. I call it the catacombs, but so far they're being good. The weather is being good, so we're on day 2 of 10 for the year. So it's a good morning so far, and I'm happy to be here.
Very nice. Yes, we are happy to bring this to the world. Our thoughts on this, and of course, our definitive movie rankings will be forthcoming at the end of the movie. This is the last of the original series that has all of the members of the series. Of course, there will be a Star Trek Generations that has about half the cast in it, half the main cast in it. That comes out 4 years later. It feels a little bit like a original series one, but it's mostly not. So we think of this as the last one. Once again, they bring back Nicholas Meyer to direct. He also wrote the script from a story plotted out by Leonard Nimoy. Did you see Leonard Nimoy did the story and Meyer did the script? That is qualifications for good stuff in Star Trek, if you ask me. I think.
Yeah, that's like Ruth and Garrett getting back together at a celebrity softball tournament. They're a tandem that has worked well together in the past, and I expect will do so again.
There you go. It did well enough that I will say that it looks like the diminishing returns at the box office will continue to happen. I don't know. Star Trek is back on TV, for 4 years at this point. Because Next Generation came out in 87, and now this is like December or November. I think it's December of 1991 when this comes out. So it's a $30 million budget. So once again, they're making these on the cheap, and then it's a $96.8 million box office. So it makes, again, triple its budget. That's what they've been doing at worst. It's tripling their budget. So they figured they needed a little bit more of a boost after their last movie. They didn't want to go out on that one, so they went out on this one. And I don't want to say this is the definitive one, but they sign it at the end, right? So that feels like they're going out on this one.
Yeah, and I remember being excited about this. Can you believe it was the 25th anniversary? I feel like we've had a 25th anniversary of everything I liked late in life. I'm like, how in the hell?
It was 66, 70, 81, 95, 25th anniversary. And now we're going to celebrate the 35th anniversary of this.
I've been listening to Queens of the Stone Age longer than 25 years. It really is amazing to me that something from before we were born was reaching its 25th anniversary in college. And it seemed like it had been around forever. I guess literally it had for us.
More than forever, yeah.
But I remember it was a big deal. Everybody was excited. I think the movie was a hit. It wasn't a runaway monster. It was kind of like your team making the wild card,
Yep.
It was like, hey, that was a successful season. All right, And I think everybody was pleased all around, especially with the fact that the movie was good. I do remember this movie fondly. How about you? Do you remember it, Butch?
Oh, yeah. There's a lot about this movie that's in my wheelhouse. It's a Cold War kind of capstone in a Cold War story, and so it's definitely in my wheelhouse as well. More so than probably the last couple movies have been, because of the historical, allegorical experience that this movie brings you. It does bring, like I said, I think the movie, Nimoy was a great director. Meyer did a good job building stories for this. There were two of them working together. Seems like it can't go wrong. And they're going to kind of tie some of the stuff from the previous movies back into this a little bit. We can see our good buddy John Schuck as the Klingon ambassador again. That's fun.
Yeah.
We got a new president of the Federation that bears a remarkable 70s show kind of reference. That would have been fun if he was
Clarence from RoboCop.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. That's where he's from as well. And but at the same time, pop culture wise, it's sad to say, but I think a lot of the Star Trek fandom at this point is going, just when are we going to get a Next Generation movie? It's like, yeah, we'll get there. You got to wait till the series is over. At this point,
Butch, have you realized that there's a RoboCop connection with Star Trek? Because we had RoboCop himself in Into Darkness.
He was also, what's the actor's name? I'm trying to blank here.
Peter Weller?
Peter Weller. He was also in a Star Trek Enterprise two-parter where he plays a xenophobe trying to get all the aliens off of Earth. And, I hate to break it to you, Rob, he's going to be at Star Trek Las Vegas. Peter Weller.
And, Butch, if you remember from Star Trek 3, one of your personal favorites, and has grown in my estimation too, you've swayed me somewhat with your arguments, the asshole navigator, where Captain Douchebag is like, they're really in for a shock. And the smug navigator, that guy was the same guy in RoboCop also.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, it's amazing how many RoboCop connections there are on that. You're correct. Then now we have Kurtwood Smith again as yet another one. Speaking of things that have changed at some point, this movie was originally, the concept that they had for a movie was originally going to be replacing the original cast with younger versions of themselves and doing a Starfleet Academy show. First of all, can you even imagine doing a Starfleet Academy movie or TV show? All right, well, they just finished season 1 of Starfleet Academy, which is not the original cast, of course, but that was the whole, well, you can't replace, like, us and use younger version of those characters. That will never work. So
I don't think that would have flown either. Actually, in '91, I don't think.
In '91, it was too early. They had to wait. They had to wait quite a while. It did come out in 2009, where we get like 20 minutes of a Starfleet Academy and J.J. Abrams movies.
Yeah,
and that was about the right. There you go. But
Frat Boy Kirk, and
But maybe the biggest event in the Star Trek universe that happened here is less than 48 hours after he viewed a cut of the movie, Gene Roddenberry dies. The great bird of the galaxy is no more. Did not live to see this movie get to the theater. He dies 2 months before. That was a big shock to the Star Trek world. Although by this point, let's be honest, you didn't hear me mentioning his name involving in the script writing or the plotting of the movie or anything like that. He's been out of Star Trek movies for a while now. And he's already out of the Star Trek Next Generation by this time, too, because he was in it for like a year and a half, and then he kind of got like jettisoned from that, too. It's weird that the franchise kind of outgrew him and then like said, well, we don't need you anymore, Gene. Thanks anyway.
Yeah, he was kind of like Tom Hagen in Godfather 2. Rest in peace, Robert Duvall and Gene Roddenberry.
Yes.
But it's like... yeah, well, Mike, maybe I could... You're out, Tom. Okay, so that's kind of what they did to Gene, and, that is a big deal. For as much as we all agree that Roddenberry had his flaws or whatever, and that Star Trek was made up by a legion of talented, actors, writers, whatever, he was the guy as much as... like Hitchcock is in a Hitchcock movie in a lot of ways. We all understand it's not a one-person deal. However, sometimes it takes one man with a vision, and that was Gene Roddenberry. So, it's a big loss.
It's too bad they couldn't figure out a way to do something like what the Marvel movies did with Stan Lee, the man Stan Lee, where he had cameos in all the movies. Like, we could have had the voice of the cook for the kitchen on every episode going, Captain, this is the cook down in the real turkeys are down here. Yeah, that was, of course.
Well, it would have been nice if he could have signed his name too. Hey, Gene, why don't you give us a signature too, and we'll have you bounce on board as an admiral for the welcome the crew back to the space dock, and we'll get you in the picture, and That didn't happen.
It did not, alas, absolutely. So yeah, so there's no more sequels for TOS movies unless you count Star Trek Generations, which I had already mentioned.
I like Generations. I don't count it, but I do like Generations.
Yeah, I mean, I don't dislike any of them. Well, I mean, okay, so we'll list the movies that come after this. So, Generations, followed by First Contact, which I think is terrific, and then Insurrection and Nemesis, neither of which is as good as it should have been. And then we go dark for 8 years until we get J.J. Abrams, and J.J. Abrams is really where Star Trek figured out, for better or probably for worse, the box office success, and they really, for the first time, had super blockbusters with that first and second movie.
I'm not putting and I enjoyed all three of the Abrams ones. I'm not putting any of those above any of the first 8 Star Trek movies.
No, I always put the only movie in the franchise that has a chance of breaking the top 6 is First Contact, I think, for me. And usually I don't put. Well, we'll get to that at the end of the show. I guess we should do that. We do have almost all the cast back. Once again, we do not get Majel Barrett Roddenberry as Chapel in this, even though it's the last send off. We do get
Is that because Gene's sore about everything?
I think so. I mean, she's on Team Roddenberry, and so as a result, she's not. She was playing Loxana Troy on Next Generation by this point, and never went back to Christine Chapel, for what it's worth.
That's a damn shame.
But we do get Commander Rand of the Excelsior. She gets a few lines in there, so that's fun.
Whoopity do.
Yeah,
I want Kyle. I want Riley.
Yeah, see, that's right. Why can't we have Kyle and Riley? There you go. I don't know why that was so hard. This is the first on-screen appearance of something that you and I, having read the books, knew already, which is Sulu's first name is Hikaru. Hikaru Sulu. This is the first on-screen appearance of the name Hikaru Sulu. And
that's from Prometheus Design, right?
I read it's the Entropy Effect. That's right. So Vonda McIntyre. We haven't covered that one yet in our 50-episode cavalcade of the first 50 pocket novels because we're drawing them randomly. So we haven't quite gotten number 3 yet, even though we've done 25 books. I
remember really liking that one.
Yeah, and I remember he's in that a lot. So we've been waiting for that one to come up with.
And they did the same thing with Uhura's name. I don't know if it's that same book, but her name comes from the books too.
Yes, it does. Deoda. Yeah, but I don't remember where that first appears on screen in the Star Trek universe. It might not be until J.J. Abrams.
Spock's first name of Elmore comes from the books. Am I right, Butch? The Bantam book?
Elmore Spock. That's exactly right. When he said Alayla Kalomi, you would be able to pronounce it. He was really just kind of making fun of her for Midwest accent, I think.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
it's fine. So like I said, this movie stars Kim Cattrall as a guest star playing Valeris. Valeris. She originally read to play Saavik in Star Trek II, didn't get the part. They gave it to Kirstie Alley. They didn't give her the part when they replaced Kirstie Alley with Robin Curtis because the look was wrong. Then she read for the part of the female Klingon in Star Trek V. Just as well they didn't burn her on that either because this is a much meatier part for her. And she gets to play. Yeah. She gets to play the Vulcan. There was discussion for quite a while that they were going to have Saavik as the character that is the turncoat. And joins teams with the Klingons and the Romulan spoiler for what happens in this movie. So I think that everybody's glad that they didn't do that they didn't bring her back and then make her the villain. What would you have thought of
particularly Butch? I especially agree with the decision not to do if it's going to be the third actress playing her.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Because it sounds like it wouldn't have been Robin Curtis, maybe, or maybe it would have. I don't know.
Yeah, it's possible it would have, but either way, they decided early not to do that, I think, and so. Speaking of bringing characters back, playing different characters, we have once again. I think I mentioned up front David Warner, who was St. John Talbot in Star Trek V, is now back playing the Klingon Chancellor Gorkin. He's much cooler doing this. He's very imperious. He's a good actor who does imperious really very well. And poor St. John Talbot did not have imperious vibes. I don't know what they were.
No, yeah. Do you remember Butch the '95 Mariners?
I do. Yeah.
Yeah, oh yeah. And Edgar batted, I don't know, 344 or something, won the batting title. He was awesome. The next year, he immediately tears a ligament in his leg and he's out for the season. And then would come back to, win another batting title and an RBI title and have a Hall of Fame career.
Right.
That is David Warner in the Star Trek movies. Yep. He was great. Then he has they just give him this nothing role. I don't know why he took it. And then he comes back with a bang, baby, because he is awesome in this movie.
Oh yeah, he's really good. And in a way that you're not expecting, the Klingons in the movies had just, to a man, been like, we don't like them. We're not supposed to like them. To the extent we like them at all is because we're enjoying their downfall. But he's the first one that we're supposed to, root for. And I think he does a good job of getting us to root for him, right? It's like, he's more into peace than our heroes are, save Scotty, or save Spock, rather, I guess.
Yeah.
So
you know what? Oh, sorry, Butch. Go ahead.
I think that's just an interesting comparison. Somebody compared Gorkon to Lincoln. The idea that he's trying to get people.
That was
to
Wikipedia.
Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah, which is a little bit strong, but I mean, he's the Klingon Lincoln, I suppose. The beards are different, and they wear different hats. But other than that,
well, what I like about him too in this role is. David Warner has always, friend of the podcast, he's always got this quality about him that you don't know if he's a good guy or a bad guy.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
We saw him be a bad guy in Time After Time.
Oh, yeah. Great stuff.
Jack the Ripper, that's pretty bad. Red Jack, I think he went by in that movie.
Guess not.
We've seen him, we saw him in The Omen, where he was kind of a good guy, but kind of haunted and cursed, and you never knew if he was going to turn into a bad guy. You know what I mean?
Right.
The photographer, and he's got that intensity. We saw him as St. John Smith, so we didn't even know if he was relevant. But so when you see him in this. And, there is, I think, in the viewer, some skepticism, as Kirk has, as Chegev has, as everybody has, about, is this guy, can we take him at face value? He seems like he's a nice guy, maybe, you know what I mean? So I really like that, because he's the leader of the bad guys, kind of, as far as the Star Trek universe is. And yet he's playing a good guy, and he has just a natural quality where you're always on the fence about, is he, isn't he? And the fact that he wins you over and wins even, spoiler, Kirk over through his actions make him, I think, a really powerful character.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you get the sense when they played McCoy at the trial where McCoy was like, I was desperate to save him. He was our last hope for galactic peace, Yeah, you get the sense that he was a charismatic person who was doing that good stuff. We also, another returning guy, I just realized, Brock Peters is back for the second time as Admiral Cartwright. We saw him in the Voyage Home running Starfleet a little bit, during the emergency situation. Now we're going to see him take a turn as well. I did not see that coming. When I wouldn't have thought they were going to make him.
Say what you mean.
Yeah. He's gonna flip teams and join the bad guys.
He's not flipping teams. Say it.
I don't know what you want me to say.
It's a heel turn.
Oh, heel turn. Okay, yeah, we're doing wrestling. Yeah. Okay, yeah, heel turn.
Yeah, he just turned on Tommy Wildfire Rich or something. That's right. Smacked him in the back of the head with the belt or something like that. No, he's and by the way, how many classes did you have with Brock in high school? It was a lot, right?
A couple, not a lot, really.
Is it a different Brock?
It's a different Brock. Yeah, they look.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. He is a little older. He is a little older than us. This case.
Yeah, and we talked about Brock Peters last time, whenever that was, a couple years ago. For me, it was last week because I was listening to our podcast. Now that you have it up on Apple, but we talked about Brock Peters and how he was. Which one was he in again? Catcher in the Rye?
No, he was in. Oh, which movie besides this? He was in Oh, the Mockingbird, To Kill a Mockingbird. Yes.
Yeah, To Kill a Mockingbird. Yeah. So Brock Peters is, known to people, and famously on the extras of this movie, they talk about how personally distasteful he found his speech to be, but like a champ, he did it, and it has more impact because of who's giving it.
Yeah.
He's great. Again, he was great in 4, and he's great in 6.
When he talks about how the Klingons, if we let them in, will become the trash of the galaxy and stuff like that, it's definitely there. It's much like only so and so go to China. I don't want to spoil it yet. That's a line you want to have somebody like Brock Peters say, right? Because it's echoing part of our past and as an allegory to our past, and having an actor who's of a race who of that was said in the in the real life version of the allegory is that makes it much more powerful.
Yeah, it does. And also McCoy's little reaction to, McCoy is startled by hearing this come out of the guy's mouth. Spoiler, I know we're not talking about the scene yet, but it is really impactful when he says it. You're like, oh, fuck.
Yeah.
We got some hurdles to get over in this movie already, right out of the gate. He's terrific.
Well, when we first see him, of course, they're all together. The original plan was to have Kirk learn about this mission and then have to go reassemble his crew, go find them. I was like, they just did that in the last movie where they had to find them in Yosemite and find them in Mount Rushmore and all this stuff. So in this case, it was probably a good decision to just have them all getting the news and arriving at the same time. And so, but they're going to have to go like track people down.
And Butch, if I can interrupt you here, we talked about the novelizations, right? About how sometimes they're written while the movie's being made.
Yeah.
Well, I guess they always are being written while the movie's being made, and so sometimes stuff will get changed.
Yep.
And I think they were saying, I saw something. I think it said that like the ending was changed in one of these, and so the book has a different ending than the movie. It might have been 6. It might have been 5 even. But I remember, and I think it's in. I haven't read 6 since the movie came out.
I
remember reading a book, and I assume it's Star Trek 6, where Kirk is skydiving from like low orbit. Like the Red Bull guy.
Yeah.
Scotty's on a boat or something. Out in the ocean. Uhura's, being Don Imus, disparaging WNBA teams. And I think that is from that original idea they were going to have where you're rounding up the band, getting the band back together again, a la Star Trek 1.
A la Blues Brothers, yes. We're putting the band back together, man.
But I think that's where I read that was the novelization of Star Trek 6. Where it's like all the original ideas they had for that they just said were too expensive and probably would have eaten up, an extra half hour, 10 minutes, or whatever. I think it comes from the book, but they probably wisely bagged it. But there was some cool stuff in there. So that was kind of fun. So it's another reason, folks, to go out and spend your $2.95 and get a book once in a while.
Yeah.
Use $19.85 price.
You're going to have to time travel to do that probably. Or, even used bookstores might probably charge more than... That's funny. I think used bookstores now charge more than the cover price for the
original.
books.
Yeah, they do.
So let's talk about a couple other things. We're 84% on Rotten Tomatoes and an A- cinema score. So most people coming out of it were happy with this. I remember coming out of this thinking that was great. I thought it was great coming out of the movie theater. But awards wise, it was nominated for 2 Academy Awards, sound effects and makeup, and it lost both to Terminator 2: Judgment Day. Makes sense.
That makes sense. I am surprised that the music was not nominated. It seems like people kind of have been rubber stamping every Star Trek score for the Oscars through the series. And I think the score for 6 is fantastic.
It's very moody and ominous. Yes, exactly. Different than the others had been, which I thought was really good. And way better than 5. So, they definitely were back in the saddle with this one for sure.
Yeah, I think the music couldn't have been any better in this one. I really like it.
So Saturn's wise, it did really well at the Saturns. It won Best Sci-Fi Film. It won Best Sci-Fi Film for 1993, which means it was mostly going against 92 movies because it was a December release, right? So
Yeah.
So the one it didn't face Terminator 2 in this, which is probably why it won. And the other ones it did beat were Alien 3, Free Jack, The Lawnmower Man, and Honey, I Blew Up the Kid. And and you're thinking, wow, that's definitely that. Those are, I can understand why it beat those for sure. I would have been shocked if Honey, I Blew Up the Kid had managed to beat this at the Saturn Awards. But it also was nominated for Best Dramatic Presentation for the Hugo Award, which is, as we've mentioned in previous podcasts, the prestigious one. It did lose that one to Terminator 2. The other ones that were nominated for that award were The Addams Family, The Rocketeer, and Beauty and the Beast. All were nominated for the Hugo Award. So getting that nomination is pretty prestigious in and of itself. So well thought of movie generally, I think, which is good. The original version of this was I know what I was going to mention. We have one other guest star we haven't mentioned. That is the model Imon. Has a pretty good role and is pretty good character playing against type, I will say, in this movie as a shape-shifting alien. And which means we're going to get what Star Trek fans have demanded since, well, I'll just say it, since Spock Must Die and Spock Messiah and the Price of the Phoenix, back to back to back. We've been begging for more. Duplicate somebody. So we get two Kirks fighting it out in this one. We even get the line that I think is a line that is a great line. It's like, I can't believe I kissed you. Must have been your lifelong ambition. Yeah, that's pretty funny, I thought. And I think it's funnier even because you don't know which one of them is saying which of those two things.
I just realized I locked myself out of the house when I was wrangling the cats.
Do you have a key?
No. So at some point here in the next few minutes, you'll have to pause this so I can call my wife and say, "Please come home for lunch."
I guess that's an important thing to do to make sure that you can get back in the house when you're outside, and so we will just do that. Yeah. So now that Rob is no longer houseless, we are going to continue. I think we've covered most of the stuff. One more guest star we've got to cover.
Butch, can I interrupt you?
Interrupt me, sure. Yeah.
400 years ago, back on Earth, husbands got fed up with being indoors, and they threw their doorknobs into the chilling rooms. Hence the name Sabotage. Yeah. So, we might even get an eye-rolling, I can't believe you're such a dipshit husband guest appearance from my wife, the Klingon commander herself, later in the show here. She comes to rescue me from the backyard.
It feels like some I deserved, but we'll leave that for later. So the one guy we haven't talked about, the one guest star we haven't talked about, is one of the great villain Klingon turns, I think, of all time, and that is legendary actor Christopher Plummer playing General Chang, he of the bolted in eye patch. What do you think of General Chang as a character?
My esteem for Christopher Plummer's performance as Chang knows no bounds. I think he is criminally underrated. You know, people talk about how great Christopher Lloyd was, and he was. But I think people forget about Plummer as Chang. I don't know. He doesn't come up. It's just like the list starts and stops with Khan of great villains. Not true, my friend. He is unbelievable. He's chewing the scenery. He seems like a worthy adversary. He's not some punk trying to make a name for himself. You know, he's not some guy shooting old probes.
Yeah.
He's not. And we haven't had, for whatever reason, we haven't had a bunch of villains. Voyager wasn't a villain,
right?
A person.
Well, Probe
Five,
wasn't a villain, yeah.
The way they didn't have one. So, but I would say, even on a list of the show, all the villains, and we had many memorable villains, I would put Plummer up there in the top 5 probably. He is fantastic, and he is an actor who's had a long career, Sound of Music and all this shit, going back to before we were born, before the show, before the show, Star Trek.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
so he is, he's got some clout. he appears to me to be egoless as far as how the production went and just had a great time or whatever. And
Yes.
and he really brings something and adds something. And you need that you already have David Warner giving a fantastic appearance. And now we need, you've got your actual bad guy lurking, and he is awesome. And he's my favorite thing, a likable villain. You like him, but he's such a he's such a conniving a guy, and he like all great villains believes in what he's thinking, and
and I like the fact that the Shakespeare quotes was Plummer's idea. He's like, I want to play the Klingon as a Shakespearean villain, like all the way to the quotes. That was an inspired choice. Coming up, that's one of the most quoted things from this or any of the Star Trek movies. Is
well, and we've talked about how Star Trek. I mean, half the episode titles in Star Trek are Shakespeare quotes. There's been a long connection with Shakespeare woven into the original series, including an episode based on a Shakespeare troupe
yes,
performing Shakespeare. But he is so awesome, and I was watching the Star Trek 6 extras. This is another reason everybody to buy Blu-rays and DVDs and keep them, is you can watch the extras and stuff. And Shatner was saying Plummer's acting makes me look, makes my, overacting or whatever look tame by comparison. And it's not that Plummer's overacting and he isn't, but it's just kind of the gleeful, just swinging for the fences, spinning his chair. He's fantastic.
I always like the phrase that they use to describe it. Playing to the back of the house, right? You gotta gesticulate and emote enough that the people in the back seats of the theater can get can pick up what you're putting down, and he's definitely that. Yeah, he's great in this.
Which was his idea to do the "Don't wait for the translation" line too.
I think I'm trying to remember if it was his idea or if that was from the script. Because that I don't remember which one it was. But that is a famous thing. Of course, we've covered that line when we did our movie review of 13 Days, where we see Adlai Stevenson delivering that at the UN General Assembly during the Cuban Missile Crisis. Right. So that's
who delivered it better, Plummer.
Plummer delivered it better for sure. You can't appreciate Adlai Stevenson until you've seen him in the original Klingon. If there's something any more true than that, I don't know what it is. All right, so let's do this, man. Let's give us a quick run through and see what happens. I'm going to say, of all the Star Trek movies we've done, this one starts with a bang. Da, 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 da.
Oh, it does. I love the opening. I do have some questions about it, though, so I'm going to I hope you buckled up today. This is not some breeze. You just get to skate through. I hope you brought your lunch bill.
We've got to discuss a lot of stuff in this. I agree.
All right. So I guess I'll pull a J. So what happened was, and we have, you have the opening credits, and the music is kind of ominous, right?
Yeah.
By the way, I like how space looks in this movie. After the disaster of Star Trek V with the special effects.
The outer space special effects are right back to form, I think, yeah.
They're crisp. It looks good. It looks dark. It looks like space.
And I think we adequately gave cover to Star Trek in Star Trek V for the fact they got it wrong, because they got the rug pulled out from under them, and they're like, it's the Industrial Light and Magic is like, yeah, we can't actually do the movie. Sorry, we're a late scratch. You're going to have to come up with somebody to meet your deadlines, on short notice. And whoever they came up with just was not well. So I say, not Industrial Light and Magic is not really a criticism, but yeah, it didn't.
Yeah, I think they went to an industrial leering center or something that just they found in the yellow pages. It is terrible. Terrible. That is but yeah,
that is right on
rip
point,
from
by the way.
Last month's
love that.
So space looks good. I just want to make that point. The music's good, and then as the credits end, directed by Nicholas Myers, kablamo, I believe was the sound effect.
Exactly.
And you get this massive explosion, which looks fantastic, and you get this then we see Sulu. Oh, Captain Sulu, 3 years in of mapping, blah, blah, bitty bloop, and his cup of coffee. And thank God coffee's still back to Star Trek. We're righting some wrongs that have fallen by the wayside. His coffee starts rattling around a la Jurassic Park. And then you get the red alert, and you get this crazy wave, and it looks so awesome, and it flings. It's just tremendous. And then Sulu's like, "Don't tell me that was whatever." I can't remember the line, but what'd you think of the opening, Butch? I love it.
It's really good. I think it's tea, by the way, that he's drinking. But I could be wrong.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, I don't know. It's in a teacup. Although it's a coffee cup too, I suppose. Yeah, he's drinking. Yeah. He's drinking on the bridge, and he says, "This I've just completed my 3rd year as commander of this vessel, or master of this vessel, or whatever." And so we get the sense he's been captain for a while. We do get a start date 9521.6.
Yeah.
So it's a while, and they've been out there cruising around, and so we even get a little bit of his cruise. Right? We get a couple of these people, and it's going to become an issue of note because there'll be you've probably seen it, right? A Voyager 2-part episode for the series Voyager, where they go back and examine when Tuvok was a member.
I did see that one. Yeah.
We don't see Tuvok in this, but we're told he's on the crew. But we do meet some of the other members of the bridge crew, and we also meet the fact that this is where Yeoman Rand is assigned now that she's Commander Rand and stuff like that. So. So it's like everything, and they're like, yeah. So this explosion happens, and they identify that it's the source of the explosion is a Klingon moon, their key energy production facility, and so Sulu offers to render assistance, and they're like, we don't need any help, stay out, obey the treaty, and don't come through the neutral zone.
I like how they're like, hey, we actually have a broadcast from Praxis. Put it on screen. And then
it's a guy on fire. It's very much like the last 3 seconds of that guy at the outpost in Balance of Terror. Yeah,
switching to visual, or whatever. Enterprise.
Yeah, that's very. There's not a lot more very Star Trekky than that particular thing right there. It's like, ultimate death and destruction, and you're getting to watch it live, and that how people die out in space? Is they just kind of like do a chapel flop, and then the screen goes black? Is that how it goes? Maybe not, but they're like, should we report this? And Sulu's like, are you kidding?
Yeah, how'd you get? I would have demoted her right there for that question. But my question then is, because it causes a massive the inference we're quickly given, the working hypothesis is that's their main energy facility.
Yeah.
They probably aren't real keen on safety precautions.
Yep.
Someone fucked up and they had a Chernobyl-like disaster.
Yeah, Chernobyl
right?
is the exact reference. Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So it causes this unbelievably massive shockwave. Right, because I don't know how close Sulu is to the neutral zone, and he's probably close, but still, it's a distance that this shockwave comes from Klingon, whatever the planet's called,
Kronos,
all the way across the neutral zone. Kronos is the moon, right?
No, Praxis is the moon.
Oh, Praxis is the moon. You're right. So Kronos is the planet. Comes all the way across and is still hurtling along. It's basically, a tsunami in space.
Yeah, that's a good comparison, I think, for sure.
And it's still formidable when it gets to Sulu. It almost destroys the Excelsior. So my question is, I guess it probably blew out away from the planet, because I was like, 50 years left. How's there a planet there?
Yeah,
that shockwave. But probably the moon. It probably blew out away from the planet.
Right. Yeah.
Is that what you think?
I think there's a lot about this that they're trying to just like be cute with the stuff. So I think what you can conclude from what we hear it's their main energy facility. It's inside the neutral zone because they're like, don't cross the neutral zone to get here. So it's inside Klingon space, past the neutral zone. So there's a buffer of that in there. There's that distance to cover. And then they're like, because the explosion of Praxis, the Klingon homeworlds ozone layer has been damaged such that their oxygen supply is going to run out, right? So the moon has to be close enough to the Klingon homeworld to cause damage to it, right? Well, it could have been a moon of any of their planets, but it's pretty clear it's their homeworld, right? So,
okay, yeah. So, I mean, if our moon had an explosion like that, we wouldn't be worried about our ozone layer in a couple of decades. We'd be dead now.
Yeah, but you're right. I think we can say, well, if it exploded outward, that's one thing, I think. But so I think they're playing fast and loose with all this stuff. The idea that, well, if your ozone layer can cause depletion of oxygen, I suppose that's true. Ozone is O3. Ozone, the chemical formula for ozone is 3 oxygen molecules. So if they're losing their oxygen to ozone, then they're losing their O2s too, maybe something. I don't know. It's hard to really get a handle on, but the important thing is they're kind of showing a little bit of it's Chernobyl, and it's also you should have been taking care of your ozone hole there, man, and stuff like that, and a little bit of environmental stuff, and they're just jumping it all in there together so that, if whatever side of this you're on, even if that side is, well, energy production that's done in a sustainable and reasonable way is a good thing. Just the Klingons don't know how to do it, because we're a better Federation. However you want to do it, they fucked up because they're doing it cheap, and the reason they're doing it cheap is because the allegory for the Russians being the Klingons makes sense, right? They are they're not Soviets. They're not nearly as rich and powerful as the Federation for a lot of reasons. Not the least of which is they're probably something akin to a totalitarian government, right? We're not, and so our free market manages to make that we can afford to have the good life and the military hardware, and they can keep up with us in military hardware, but it's at the expense of safety and good lives for their people and stuff like that. But that's okay because Klingons are happy living the hard scrabble life as long as they get to fight a lot. So it works for the Klingons. But now their path of having this long-standing conflict with the Federation that's not, and I'm glad they describe it as a Cold War because that's exactly what it is. We see them occasionally shoot at each other, but they're never in a war, except for one time in the original series, and that's right at the start of Aaron and Mercy, right? So.
Yeah, and they would have been the implication is there would have been an outbreak of actual hostilities had the Organians not intervened.
Yeah.
So it's a Cold War with possibly people on both sides bristling for, God, I wish we could turn this into a hot war.
Yeah. And we're going to get to see that in this movie. Cool. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, right? So some people are going to, on both sides, are going to use this as an excuse to start that war. So I think when you say, what do I think about all this? I think it feels like they're not really dealing with the vastness of space very well either. Because it's implied they have to be right on the edge of the neutral zone, which is where we hear that they are, right? So
yeah. But also the Klingon homeworld has to be pretty near the neutral zone,
right? And that's something we don't know. Honestly, I don't know. I've looked at maps before, and I don't remember where the Klingon homeworld is relative. But that being said, having your capital near the border with a bad guy is not unheard of. If you recall, the American Civil War, Richmond, Virginia, and Washington, D.C. are 40 miles apart. In a pretty vast country, the Mason-Dixon line is they're both within 20 miles of the Mason-Dixon line. It was a day's ride in your carriage to go out and watch the battle at Manassas from Washington, D.C., and that was in Virginia. So I mean, so it's not unprecedented for capitals to be very close to a border. I just don't know had Richmond's moon exploded, I don't know if it would have destroyed Richmond or before the shockwave hit Washington, D.C. or not. I might be losing myself in my allegory here, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah,
right.
Maybe.
So either way, we got to go to Starfleet headquarters. We don't get much of a glamour shot, but we all know that that's Starfleet headquarters in San Francisco that we see, right?
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
Our whole crew except one is coming in. Hers was supposed to be at a seminar. Scotty was supposed to be on his boat. Everybody's kind of complaining, why are we here? And then they introduced the CNC, which Commander-in-Chief, right? That's, I don't know. We in the United States think our Commander-in-Chief is the President. The Starfleet has a Commander-in-Chief that is not the President of the Federation. So they have a guy who's in charge. And he says, well, not to put too fine a point on it, but the Klingons have 50 years to live. And they're like, dude, that takes, for lack of a better phrasing, considering what their problem is, that takes the air out of the room when you hear a phrase like that.
I'm surprised. I know it's top secret, but I would have liked a few more people in here for maybe some other Starship crews or something.
Yes.
I know it's a need to know, but, whatever.
It's a bigger group than you often see. And Rob, I know that you often have a problem with why aren't there more people in these things. I think we're going to give Rob what he wants in terms of lots of people on the ship in this movie.
I am so happy you brought this up, and I know we'll get to it, but it was so great to see a crew on the Enterprise again. Man.
Could this be their crew? Yeah, exactly. So I knew we were going to get Rob what he wanted in this movie from that. But in this case, it's a small group, and they're just briefing them, and they say, "Well, we're going to bring in the special envoy. He's going to tell you more about it." And sure enough, in walks Spock, and they're all kind of gobsmacked. And he says, a few weeks ago, at the behest of the Vulcan ambassador, we all know who that is, but he's going to clarify it later. I began talks with Gorkin, the Chancellor of the Klingon High Council. He says the Klingons do not have the resources to deal with it because their military buildup, and they have requested that negotiations for a peace treaty begin at once. And that's I mean, so when you, this is probably what happened to a lot of people in the United States right around when the Berlin Wall fell, and it's like, yeah, by the way, the Soviet Union's like coming apart. What do we do now? Do we keep building tanks? Do we keep building B-2 bombers? What do we do? Our whole economy and our whole society is built around this, protecting against them, and the them are going to be gone now. What do we do? And so they have a little bit of a brief, do we mothball the fleet and, and stuff like that. And
well, that would have been short-sighted, I think, in the Star Trek universe. I don't know anything about geopolitics, but that would, there are going to be other. Space is big, and we only know a little bit of it, and there's going to be some opponents out there, maybe. Yeah,
but it's a question. That it's like, I think there are a lot of people who would have said, if we're real worlding this, they would have said, well, yeah, we mothball the fleet because the whole point is you've been saying for decades. Well, we really wish that we could. Spend more money on programs to feed the poor and educate the uneducated and stuff like that. But we can't, because if we do, we'll leave the door open. The Russians will come kick that door down, and then we'll all be doing whatever the Russians tell us to do. So once that's off the table, like, great, let's stop spending money immediately on military and just start spending all this money on this stuff we've been saying for decades we should be spending on it. And you just can't flip over that fast. I mean, because somebody's going to go, the Romulans are right there. They're right there. I mean, it feels like that's. It's not like space is not dark and full of terror still.
Hooray.
Yeah.
Rescue, do you have something to say for the podcast? Anybody, your dipshit husband?
Yeah, you left with the door to the house open, going into your living room.
Yeah, because I haven't come out, because I just came out here. I haven't been in the chilling room.
You're a dummy.
Thank you. There you have it, listeners. It's a good thing that I have it.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Rob McCullough and Darlene Hour. Darlene rightfully reading Rob the right act. She's like,
Did you like Star Trek 6, honey?
I did.
Hey, that's big breaking news here at this podcast. That's great to hear.
It is. Darlene, I hate Star Trek McCullough. Comes clean that 6 was okay. Yeah.
Well, that's great.
It's because it has Christopher Plummer from The Sound of Music. That's why. Yeah, I know.
Edelweiss. Yeah.
Don't lock me out. I was like,
you're in the house now. You're telling her not to lock you out. You're in the house.
Do we know where Ava is, by the way, honey? I want to make sure all the cats are accounted for. Ava can't go outside. She's the one that escapes. Oh, there she is. Okay. All right. We got both cats. We're good to go, Butch.
This is, if you've been following the Star Trek podcast, you know that cats play an important role in Star Trek. They're
Butch, yeah. I'm ready to get back to
sometimes
podcast.
you need them when you're Gary Sevening. Sometimes you need them when you're Halloween planeting. Sometimes you need them when you're Friday's childing. But you always need a cat around, and so that's great. It's fine. All right. So where were we? Let's see. Yeah, so all this ends, and they're like, well, anyway, you guys we are going to be our first olive branch. Spock has volunteered for you guys to go. And he's like, oh, he did? Yeah, well, we figured that the Klingons might have some people that might not be happy about this, but they'll think twice about messing with the Enterprise if you're commanding it. And
I find it hard to believe. I know it doesn't matter, and this is a dumb point to quibble about, but I find it hard to believe they wouldn't have at least run this by Kirk. You are okay with this, right? I mean, I know they're doing that now, but I didn't know first officers could just volunteer starships for missions.
Well, it turns out that he convinced the higher ups that that's the best idea. They agree with it. He's the logic on them, and now they're like telling Kirk, "Yeah, by the way, I'm the commander in chief, and you remember how we demoted you to captain, and you were like, woohoo, I'm captain again? Well, turns out we get to be assholes and give you orders that you don't like again. So get used to that, and you should be used to it by now."
This just occurred to me. Do you think Spock was kind of a dick here in forcing Kirk's hand? Because he could have ran it by Kirk.
Yes. I think he didn't run it by Kirk because he knew Kirk would say no. So he went over his head before asking. And he got the answer he wanted. That's kind of a dick
move.
But he's trying to please his dad. Remember, he's trying to get back in Dad's good graces. And Dad wants this.
Yeah.
So,
that's a good point.
So
it's possible his dad may have...
I don't want it, but my dad said I had a... He said I had a... Sorry, I'm Gothosing.
Squiring, yeah.
I'm squiring and Gothosing at the same time. That's not easy to do. So everybody else needs a room but Spock and Kirk. He's like, you volunteered us. And then Spock has what I think was the best line of this whole movie, which is, there is an old Vulcan proverb, only Nixon can go to China.
Yeah, that's hilarious.
That is so great because I mean, again, that's like straight up geopolitics history, right? Is like the idea is when China split and became a communist country, their like nationalist elements ran to Taiwan and called Taiwan China, and we recognized China as Taiwan as China for decades.
Yeah, which is silly, but yeah, it's
and they were like, well, because any Democratic president tries to recognize it, they're going to call him soft on communism. But the one guy who can't call soft on communism is Joe McCarthy. But the other guy you can't call soft on communism was Richard Nixon. He was an anti-communist firebrand as a vice president for 8 years.
Richard Milhouse Tiberius Nixon.
That's exactly right. So that's a great point. The idea that nobody's going to think that you're capitulating when you're the guy who's been the strongest anti-voice.
Yeah.
Right, for the long time. And so the interior logic of this, as storytelling is great. And it also seals the argument for Kirk doing this. Now, the thing that's amazing is how far Kirk goes in this scene, right? They get in this argument.
Yes,
their animals don't believe them.
I have felt conflicted about this for, what was this, 35th anniversary? 35 years now. I'm not disagreeing with this choice, but I'm really torn on it because it's really important for the story arc for Kirk in this movie.
Yeah.
And I know Shatner said he wanted to play it a little differently and leave some wiggle room, like maybe he's just saying it and then it came out wrong or whatever. Yeah. You know how sometimes you say stuff and you didn't really mean it to the extent that it came out.
Yeah.
And they didn't do it that. They
doubled down on it twice in the movie. Yeah.
And so it kind of, and I applaud, Shatner for doing this. It sort of betrays who we think of Captain Kirk as being, someone who is like, hey, the universe is diverse and we gotta not judge a book by its cover and not judge there's no room for racism on leave it in your quarters, there's no room for it on the bridge, right?
Yes.
And that is not what we're seeing here. And so that is like because say what you want about Kirk, he is our hero. If not one of one, he's one of three or whatever, right? He's the hero of the show. And for him to be saying this is kind of shocking, and it still shocks me because he means it. He's like, let him die. It's like, oh, geez.
That's a brutal thing to say. I mean, that line is a brutal thing to say. Now, that being said, even on my walk this morning, I'm having this conversation with my neighbor about how my mom is 80 years old. She was born at the end of World War II, July of 45, so literally one month before the surrender on the battleship on the Missouri in Tokyo Bay. And she still, last I talked to her about it at length was 2015, she still is like, she will never forgive Japan for this, or the Japanese people. And I was like, none of the people who are in Japan now were involved in that decision. Almost none of them were born when those decisions were made. It's like it's 5 generations ago.
Yeah,
it's okay.
And
it
the
might
world
be
was
okay.
different. It was a different place. So it's,
and stuff. But it's one of those things where personal experiences, and they focus on what it is. It's like, well, some Klingons killed my son, and while that's still kind of fresh in his memory, that's part of probably why it is. He spent his whole career thinking he's adversaries, and with the Klingons, and it speaks to the kind of way that we historically think about our enemies, right? I mean, when you think about how there's a lot of casual racism among Americans when it comes to Islamic countries that were the Islamic Republic of Iran and stuff like that. We often do debase them to think of them as subhuman-ish. I say we as a collective, we collectively. I think I try really hard not to do this personally, but it happens to all of us. And Kirk had a special dispensation for him having this feeling because of what Krug did to David, and which just fit in with the stereotypes. And then, but more importantly, I think it gives him a redemption arc. Kirk gets a mini redemption arc in this movie because he comes around. Right.
Yeah. So I think it works.
Where you land is the important thing, right? Cartwright does not land in the right place. Valeris does not land in the right place.
By the way, remind me at the end. I want to know what we think happened to the bad guys.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's good. Anyway, so now we're on space dock, and where our crew is on the bridge. They're getting ready to leave. Everybody's
hold on, Butch.
Sure.
So when you saw this in the theater, because I remember being shocked by that speech by Kirk, and the tension. We don't usually see a lot of real tension between Kirk and Spock. At least we haven't for some time. What was your take when you saw this in the theater? And I'm sure you saw it at opening weekend. I did.
I saw it with a bunch of guys from my hall and with my girlfriend at the time, Karen, who's now the wife. Yeah. And she's almost as big a Star Trek fan as I am. She had been watching Star Trek for years before she met me and stuff like that. So but
you gotta warn people of spoilers like that. Yeah. That you were dating Karen and that you have ultimately married Karen and had 3 beautiful children and a grandchild.
Spoilers. All this is spoiler. That's right. So the idea is I'm pretty sure that between everybody that's in the row with you and the popcorn and the orange soda and all that other stuff that I don't remember being like gobsmacked by this as I have since then. Generally am. I probably just let it roll off. I'm just like taking it in and not like thinking deep thoughts about it, because it's hard to hear it and not go that's astounding what I just heard. But it didn't strike me as odd because it felt real and earned because of what he went through in Star Trek 3.
Yeah, which is fair.
Yeah, but that being said, it's not fair because he's blaming Gorkon for stuff that renegade Klingon commander of some bird of prey did, right? So,
luckily they might touch on the racism angle a little bit more in this movie, as they have throughout the show.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, they're really going to touch on it. We're going to hear some of our main characters talk about it. We're going to hear some side characters, some rando crew people really get into it. But yeah, it's all the casual racism you might want in a movie, where you're learning to not be casually racist, right? I think that's the goal of this movie, is that, right? Maybe, or at least it's a goal of this movie, right? I think.
Yeah, I don't think it's ugly.
I think what they wanted is how did they describe it? They wanted to say to be able to see people beyond the stereotypes, right? That's kind of what Nimoy was going for. So now they're at Space Dock, and among the new crew they meet is Lieutenant Valeris, who has that friendly little Vulcan bobbed haircut. Yeah, I'm not saying that's a great hairdo. It's not great on her. It's certainly not. It's not. It's still regulation, Sir Kirstie Alley's Vulcan hairdo. But I'm going to give that.
It makes her look like her head's elongated, like the alien from Alien.
Crystal Skull. Yes.
Now, let me give you my thoughts on Cottrell here.
Yeah.
And I'm not holding Sex in the City against her, right?
Yeah.
And I know she was subsequently in a few movies and stuff, and this is one of her earlier roles, right?
The first thing I remember her in at the theater was the movie where it was Mannequin, right? I remember, and I thought she was like gorgeous in Mannequin, but she was actually in Big Trouble in Little China before that. So that's probably the first movie. She's the girl, the girl with the blue eyes or the green eyes in Big Trouble in Little China. Yeah.
Anyway. So spoiler, I like her in this movie.
Yeah.
And I agree with the decision to not make it Saavik, even though it's obvious she's basically Saavik 2.0.
Yeah.
Right. She's Spock's protege. She doesn't have the cool half Romulan stuff that we've established. Saavik was a little more conflicted, right? I believe that Valeris is pure Vulcan, correct?
Yeah, there's no reason to think. They don't give any reason to think otherwise, yes.
But, she's, I think we learned, didn't we learn in the show that Spock had been something, it was said that Spock was the first Vulcan in Starfleet. I don't know if I'd buy that since there's a whole Vulcan starship. I mean, presumably those guys went to Starfleet.
We don't know. Spock's been in Starfleet for a long time.
Yeah, that's true.
I think that's what it is.
Anyway, but she's, Spock's proud of her. She's the first one to graduate at the top of her class, the Academy, So that's nice. And she's got the Spock seal of approval, which means something to us viewers. Now, so I like her in this movie, but I don't like her as much as I liked
Robin Kurtz.
What's her face? Kirstie Alley's Saavik.
Yeah.
And she is kind of her performance is interesting because she does quirky little stuff that you wouldn't expect a Vulcan, even though she's being super serious Vulcan all the time.
She's bubbly. She's bubbly, which is kind of a weird thing for a Vulcan. Where she's like, I always wanted to try that. She's fun, and I think her performance is great. I wish they would lance off that whatever's on her face. It just drives me crazy every time I see her. Yes.
But it killed Darlene. Darlene's like, I have a real hard time with whatever that is with Kim Cattrall. Because I said, what do you think of Kim Cattrall? She's like, she's got that thing on her face. That's a quote.
And the hairdo and all that stuff only accentuates it.
But she is great, and it is spoiler, kind of a surprise heel turn that we get from her.
Yeah.
But she's really good, particularly in the scene, which we'll get to with the casual racism in the transporter room. So I like her, and I want to say, good job, Kim Cattrall. I'm glad it wasn't Saavik, but it's another. I feel like there's a longing throughout the Star Trek movie franchise for what might have been with more Saavik. We could have had her in 4. We could have had her in 6.
Yeah. Yep.
Ugh.
It was
Anyway.
kind of a missed opportunity, but it is what it is. So, we meet her. We learned that she was the first Vulcan to finish at the top of her class in Starfleet Academy. And I was like, that seems unlikely. If they had Vulcans in Starfleet Academy, you would think that they were probably dominating, right? But that's not necessarily true. I guess maybe they grade them on a curve or something like that. We don't know. And then
you get scored on different. I remember when they had me to go to this when I was in the National Guard, Butch. I don't know if I've told you this story. Did I ever tell you this about when they surprised me and put me in front of an officer candidate board?
No, I don't remember.
1 weekend.
Yeah.
Do you have time for a short digression?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So it's fitting with it. So yes.
So I was in the National Guard, and we would go to the Yakima firing range weekends, 1 weekend a month, because we're a desert anti-tank infantry unit.
Yeah.
And there's no more desert than the Yakima firing range in the middle of nowhere, Washington. And so you'd go out there, and most of the time you'd stay out the whole weekend. But this one weekend, we went out there in our tanks and ITVs and stuff and played around in the dirt. And, Shatner talks about how the fake snow gets in all your orifices and the making of Star Trek 6. You're just coated in dirt and dust. But they had a barracks, and like once a year you'd get to come in, so you're going out there maybe 10 times a year, and most of the time you're just sleeping out there. But maybe one time a year you'd come back and stay in the barracks the 2 nights, right? Saturday night or Friday night, Saturday night.
Right.
And this was one of those times, and they had a community center with a bar and a movie. And I remember, so we go in there, there's 50 of us probably that were going in there, and they had a mess hall and stuff. And the movie was Kickboxer with Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Yes.
And I had just turned 21, and I'm ordering screwdrivers. I probably had 7 screwdrivers, and I'm watching Kickboxer, and I'm in my fatigues, and I'm completely coated in dirt. And someone comes in and goes, Private McCullough. And I was like, oh, fuck.
This is the timing on this? Oh, geez.
Yeah. So, and they just said, come with me. And I follow this guy, and we leave the building. We go to some other building, and I didn't know what the hell was going on. We get to some other building. There's 5 other kids there, wearing their dress uniforms, Butch.
And you're all dirty.
And I'm filthy. And they're all like, oh, is my button polished enough? Is my hair straight? They were tweaking. They were freaking out. And I did not know what was going on. I'm like, what the hell? And they're not telling me. And then, finally the guy goes, you have an officer candidate board or whatever. And I didn't even know what that was.
You didn't even know what it was.
So they shoved me, in this room, kind of like Starfleet headquarters. There's 7 officers lined up behind a table that I'm facing. And they're up higher. You know what I mean? It's
they're on an elevated platform. Yeah.
It's like this is Colonel so and so, and this is Major such and such, and it's a bunch of them. And it was an interview.
Oh, good Lord.
And and I didn't know I was getting interviewed. I didn't know what I was getting interviewed for. I didn't know it was an interview. So they're asking me stuff, and I was like, well, And so and spoiler, I did not want to be an officer.
That tops it all off. Is like at the end of the day, I don't care.
So like a month. So I do this interview and I leave, and that's that. And I go back to see Jean-Claude finish off the big Korean guy or whatever. And 2 months later, I'm at Wenatchee at the Armory, and my captain or whoever calls me in and says, "Congratulations, McLaughlin." And I was like, "What?" And he goes, You scored the highest of everybody on the officer candidate panel or whatever.
Wow.
So you get to be an officer. You get to go to officer candidate school. And I said, I don't want to do that. and I really got some heat over this because I was like, no, I'm not doing it. I said, well, I have to extend my enlistment. And they're like, well, yeah, it's kind of and I was like, no.
Yeah,
no way.
I think I'm happy to do my enlistment and then be done with this.
Because it probably would have added 2 more years to my service. And granted, it's a weekend a month. It's not like, whatever. But I didn't want it to be 1 more minute. But I got to see the scoring, and I scored the highest of the 7 on poise and confidence for 2. There was 10 categories.
Wow.
But because I had at least a buzz, I scored really high on confidence and poise because I didn't give a shit and I wasn't worried about anything, and I was somewhat intoxicated. And so maybe the Vulcans, this is where I bring it back. maybe the Vulcans score really high on some of the categories, but there's a couple of categories that humans are always going to have an advantage on that keeps them from graduating at the top of their class. I don't know.
That's a good point. Yeah, have you considered a Red Bull and some vodka before you go into
I
your
do
test?
not understand the question. You know, if you can't even handle how do you feel, maybe that's what's killing them all at graduation day.
How do you feel? This is not rocket
So
science.
yeah, I hope that story tied in somewhere.
This is not rocket science. Cetralars.
Yeah.
I mean, get some more apostrophes for the lieutenant here, please. Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a good story, I think, and somewhat fitting in here is in that Valeris is surprisingly the first Vulcan ever to finish at the top of her class. She had to wait for all the McGulligs to get out of the way, I guess.
Yeah.
And so next time we see her, of course, we join Kirk in his quarters. And he's rocking his door open.
Whoa, Butch! Don't we have a fun getting out of space?
Oh, that's right. We didn't do that part yet because he orders 1/4 impulse. And she's like, "I'm sure you meant thrusters." He's like, "You heard the order, Lieutenant." And everybody's shaking their head, going tisk tisk tisk. That's the difference between this and Star Trek 2. Is like, didn't Savick solve this question for him in Star Trek 2? Maybe it did, but then managing to squeak the Enterprise out in Star Trek 3 at 1/4 impulse power fixed it for him. But it is a cool shot when they show it from the front view going through the door, and it's accelerating, and you can see Valeris is getting a bit of a rise out of it because it's like,
yeah. And Scotty and the doofus next to him, the guy next to Scotty's mouth is agape, like, whoa, that was fun.
They don't let you do that very often, and so when you're ordered to do something that they don't normally let anybody do, that's a big deal. So they get zooping out of there, and then now we're Kirk in his quarters, and he's looking at his picture of David, his 3x5 of David on his mantelpiece there, and he's recording a log. He's like, I can never forgive them for what they did to my boy, and stuff like that. And then
I really like that the photo's in black and white too.
Yeah. He's bringing in color prints. I don't think so. Not on a captain's salary,
awesome.
Or not. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so,
well, I mean, it's not just an ordinary photo. It's a special photo for him.
Yeah, absolutely it is. And so then we see that Valeris kind of overheard part of his conversation and says, "It's a pleasure to serve with you." And he says, "Well, you did a nice job pelling out of space dock," and she does that again. The Kim Cattrall and Mannequin bubbly. I always wanted to try that.
And he says, like, you could have knocked, and we're all thinking that, yeah, like, why didn't she knock? It's weird.
It is weird, but I'm thinking, why is his door open? It's fine. He's a captain. I suppose he wants some. It's like there are two kinds of people in the dormitories in college: the people who had the door open all the time, and the people who had the door closed all the time. I was a door open guy, so I don't know. I can't really complain because that was me. It's like, feel free to pop your head in and say, "Hey," if you want to, kind of a thing. So it's all good. But we're gonna have to file that Valeris conversation away for later. It's gonna come back and get us. Or it's going to come back and get Kirk, as it were.
Well, that's good writing.
Yep.
Chekhov's door open. Chekhov's open door.
So now Valeris is going to go to Spock's quarters, and they're going to share a drink out of what I'm going to guess is a pretty expensive tiki mug, I guess is what it looks like. I don't know what he's mixing in there.
I think this scene is interesting to me because it almost implies that there's some chemistry between the two of them. I'm not saying any funny business, but that again feels like something that may or may not or could have or something happen with Savick, right?
Yeah, oh sure, yeah.
Where I'm not saying they have a personal relationship as well, but it's pretty personal for a mentor-student relationship. I would never accuse Spock of funny business, but it does seem like they have a chemistry. It doesn't feel like it's purely business.
No, and again, when you're implying Spock and Savick having had a past, it's mostly based on the fact that was not really Spock either. That was Spock without his Spock in him, right? It was
it
was Spock with the Contra with the Contra absent and without leave. So there's that. But I do like kind of how they how this scene is setting up. He's like, I mean, for you to be my replacement. This is going to be my last voyage, and she's like, talking about the big things. This is, do you not recognize the turning point in Federation affairs and how there's a big deal. She feels like she's kind of like laying this out there, hoping he'll like nibble on the line so she can explain her side. But he doesn't, because Spock is the one from the beginning of this movie. He's the one true believer of the whole peace is the way to go with Klingons.
Yeah, this is an interesting scene, because she says, "Don't you see we're on a tipping point or whatever?" And he's like, he almost does like an eye roll, and he's like, because he's been around the block a few times. How many times has the Enterprise saved the galaxy and Earth and the Federation?
And
And
let
it's
alone
over and over and
from
over.
the Klingons, just alone, if you just do it a lot of times just from the Klingons, and that's plays part of this.
And
whole...
so and Spock's like, it's always something, and you have to hope that the universe will unfold as it should, which I have taken that to heart, and I try to believe that things are going to work out the way they're supposed to, and not get too worked up in the moment about whatever the drama of the week is.
Yes.
But he also has that cool painting of, Genesis and the expulsion from paradise, and he's trying to explain to her about logic is a part of it. It's not the end all beat all that Vulcans act like it is. And it's really interesting, because they're both trying to tell each other something, and it's and they're both so focused on what they're trying to get across, they're missing what the other person is sending back. And it's a really interesting scene. I really like that scene.
And especially when you consider that they're not giving away Valeris's role in this whole thing. It's like when you realize when she's later that she was trying to say something that he wasn't hearing, and he obviously was doing the same, but they were unknowingly, well, maybe she knew it, but he didn't have any idea how far off the same page they were. And so that is what makes it really interesting. It's for future viewings and stuff like that.
It's like when you see a tag team you like, and one time they have a big match on Saturday Night's Main Event or something, and the guy goes to get a badly needed tag, and his partner, who's usually been Mr. Reliable, has been distracted by the ref or a fan or something and wasn't there. They somehow get through the match anyway, and you shrug it off. That was an accident.
But you're going to file that away for a couple weeks from now when, in the next...
Yeah, when there's a heel turn.
Yep.
Or one of the partners turns on the other one. Exactly. Yep.
You can see something going to come back and haunt somebody later, but it's not happening yet, but it's going to happen.
Yep.
And the warning signs are there. Yeah. So speaking of warning signs, now they're at the rendezvous with the Kronos. Kronos 1 is the battle cruiser, and it's the battle cruiser. Thank God.
Thank God. Were you excited about this? I was really excited.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very cool, and we can see it in battle. Well, we'll get to that. So the battle.
Well, and I was, because why I was more excited this time, probably even more than in the theater, because I've been listening to our podcast about me bitching, and I think you agreed with me about, like, can we get away from the little bird of prey shit?
Absolutely.
And get back to the...
They do something in this episode, in this movie, that makes me think about why they did this. And they at least imply that the Klingon battle cruiser doesn't have a cloaking device. That the only ones that have a cloaking device are the birds of prey, which makes sense if you're going, well, that's what they got from the Romulans, is the bird of prey. That's why there's a bird on it, because it's Romulan.
Yep.
And that's why it's a different design, although the design itself looks like something the Klingons would have designed, right? So there's that. But that would explain if only the birds of prey have the cloaking device, and that would explain why, because they always seem to use that cloak as a MacGuffin in the movie, right? So,
but boy, was I happy to see that long neck Klingon battle cruiser. Holy
such a great model the Klingon battle cruiser is, and so definitely great to see that. And they show up and they're like, Shield's captain, and Kirk's like, never been this close before. It's like they're right underneath it, right? I mean, they're in formation with the Klingon battle cruiser. And they get the call from Kronos 1, and it's the Chancellor Gorkon, And they have said some niceties, and he's like, it's like, well, my officers and I would like to invite you to dine with us tonight, and if you want to come over, you probably don't, but if you want to, he's like, we'd be happy to. And the look on Kirk's face, his shoulders just kind of drop. He's like, oh, I was just being nice, dude. Read the room.
Well, it's like when Darlene and I were first together, and we'd have to go to these things that, like one of her kids graduating or something, where her ex would be there also, and they'd always seat me and him next to him or next to each other.
Yes. And
so it's like you can't stand the other person, but you're playing nice.
Yeah. So what's been happening?
Kirk's very grudgingly inviting them to do something, and Gorkon's like, we'd be delighted to accept your gracious. They both are really playing up the mistrust and the possible animosity. It's even Spock, and Spock does this too. When he meets the Chancellor and everybody, he's very formal. He's not friendly Spock. He's extremely formal Spock, and that's what we're getting here. We're getting thinly veiled disgust from Kirk. Gorkon and Spock are playing it up the kind of cold aloofness, the giving lip service to social niceties, but that's it. It's awesome. It's really fun.
Oh yeah, it turns out great, and so they invite him to dinner, and then they're like, then he turns and says, "Well, Valeri's like, hey, maybe some Romulan ale will help smooth the evening along." He's like, "Well, that's capital thinking, Lieutenant." Duh.
That's how you get to be top of your class.
That's exactly
thinking
right.
Outside the box.
And then he walks past Spock. He goes, "I hope you're happy." And then I love the line again. It's another line that's dealing with kind of like race relations in American history. Guess who's coming to dinner?
Yeah, that's pretty blatant. Yeah.
And that's such a great line, though. I mean, that line is such a great line and delivered so well by Chick. I mean, that's a huge laugh line in the theater when he says that.
Yeah, absolutely.
For sure. Not the best line in the movie. The best line in the movie is a great, great, great line, and it's coming up, and we'll get there. So now they welcome him aboard. They beam over. It's Blue beaming over, so apparently the Federation is using their transporters to beam them over into their transporter room. I don't know how, did you think they were consistent on that about what color the transporters were when they were going here or there kind of a thing? I don't know. I think it feels like there were a couple times where they played fast and loose with, once again, like in Star Trek 3, where they're like, wait, did the Klingons need the Enterprise to beam their guys over? Feels like they didn't need that. Feels like the Klingons could have beamed them over themselves. I don't know. They're just not clear.
I think for the movies, this is a kind of a slightly broader point, but I think there's some thought in the movies that you have to change some shit up each time just to change it.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
We have to change the uniforms. We have to change the ship every time. Has the Enterprise ever looked the same twice? I don't think so.
No.
The transporters have to look cool but different.
Yep.
Like why? Okay, I guess whatever. I mean, it's just I think they're just like, just make it look cool and not the same as whatever we did last time.
We can make it look slightly better than last time, so we're gonna do it.
Yeah. It looks great. I like it. Yeah. But I mean, it's like every time they go to warp, it's got to look different. Why would that look different?
Yeah, every time. Or when
why does it look like a rainbow sometimes? Why does it look, what I mean? Like, it's just...
Well, I think LeVar Burton had a hand in it looking like a rainbow, but that's fine. Because he did Reading Rainbow. See? There we go. So they beam him over, and we meet the Chancellor in person. He's a big, towering guy, although not quite as towering as Brigadier Karla is. That guy's huge.
That was awesome. They all looked and they looked up like, oh shit.
And we meet his daughter Azitbur, and then we meet General Chang, who's not tall really, but he's like, I have so wanted to meet you, Captain. And Kirk's like, I'm not sure how to take that. And then Kurla's like, oh, sincere admiration, of course. Yes, it's like, and they're like, right. So we know right away these two guys are the two big alphas in the room, and they don't like each other.
Yeah. But Chang is a likable villain, right?
Yeah.
He's the fun kind of villain. And I really like his look. They make because he's got the cool eye patch thing, like you said.
Yeah.
to make him stand out. You gotta have. I mean, how many Bond movies have we seen where the guy's got some kind of physical deformity to make sure you know he's the bad guy?
For sure.
And then, but he also he's got his head is all scarred up. This guy's been through the battles.
Yes, for sure.
So you can tell this guy's a tough son of a gun. He's not just some asshole.
He's in no hurry to make it to the Black Fleet, is what you're saying. Yeah, because it feels like
he's been around the block, and he's probably every bit as experienced as Kirk is. And like you said before, Kirk's legendary with the Klingons. He's outsmarted him a handful of times.
Yep.
So Chang probably is sweet. He's not. He's like, oh, I heard of you, Tyson, but I'm not afraid of you. He's kind of Holyfielding a little bit here.
Exactly. They're doing a good job of standing their ground, of course. So then as they leave, everybody leaves. They see the two chowderheads in there. I'm going to call them Dwight and Billy Bob or whatever. And they're going to throw out everything that we need to know. It's like, they all look alike to me. And only the top of the line models can even talk, right? And that smell is like, well, let's just cover all of them right now. Just get them out of the way. And then flush these guys down the toilet. It's not surprising that they make these two guys bad guys, in that they're the assassins, right? These are the two guys talking.
Oh, are they the two assassins? Are they?
Yeah, because Valeria's like, you two have duties, don't you? Go snap two. Well, that's the duties they have, is to go, get ready to beam over, and I think that's what she's talking about, because she's the one.
Well, that's interesting, because I think it's I always thought it was just a misdirection to get because she looks so disapproving,
right? That's just it. You're exactly right. She does, and then the way she says that, and how she says it, you're like, boy, she put them in their place. But then later, you're like, oh shit, no, that's her guys. It's like,
okay, I missed that in the 20 viewings.
I'm working on the assumption that because the one guy has a beard and then we see one of the two dead guys later with a beard. That's working on the assumption he's Burke or Samno, but I don't know.
Could be.
Could be. Yeah. So now it's a dinner scene, and the dinner scene is tremendous. They're all joined together. They are eating something blue. It does not appear to be Klingon food, and yet it appears to be Klingon food adjacent. It's like, you pick it up. One of the Klingons picks up the stuff with his hand, and it looks like you could say that's the kind of gach or whatever, the worm stuff that Klingons are famous for eating or whatever.
What the hell? I mean, it doesn't appear to be Federation food, because the whole Enterprise crew is like, ugh.
Yeah, you'd think blue spaghetti would be okay or whatever. I don't know, but it looks alien, was what it is. Which is what, if you're not going to serve fruit cubes, serve us something that looks alien, right? So
I want fruit cubes. Maybe it's just me.
That's fair. I think that is fair. So then Chang gets up, or not Chang, Gorkon gets up and offers a toast to the undiscovered country, and nobody gets it. He's like, the future, and then Spock gets it. Hamlet Act 3, Scene 1. Oh, yeah, okay, yeah, that's good. By the way, that was the original title for Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, was the undiscovered country,
Yeah, and in Hamlet, they said that the undiscovered country actually refers to death, not the future, but I like it meaning the future.
Yeah.
And I like how this dinner quickly devolves from maybe we are seeing a bit of that future here to Hitler, 1930. Yeah, I mean, it goes south.
I like that our guys are trying. Kirk is not the guy that's trying. I'll say Scotty's trying, Uhura's trying. And that's fine. Her at least is trying to make conversation when she kind of stops, because the guy's shoveling food in his mouth by his hand. It's like, do you like Shakespeare? But then it devolves. It's like, so it's like, well, what do you think, Captain, says Chang? Do you think we should get rid of our fleets of battle cruisers and Spock again, showing that you're right to point out that there's inherent tension between Spock and Kirk in this movie for a lot of it, right? He's like, Spock kind of interrupts and says, I think the captain has always believed that the Federation's mission is one of peace. He's like, well, far be it for me to disagree with my first officer. But he's like, it's okay. It's space all warriors or cold warriors. Another great line. Delivered well, and it's kind of supposed to make you think of Fringe as a dish best served cold, right? It's echoing that a little bit. It's
supposed to make you think of the Cold War. If you didn't
and the
get
Cold
War.
War. Absolutely, that's exactly right. And then it's like, so then they start arguing, and some of the others are like, well, we know where this is going. It's going to be the end of our culture. And McCoy's like, that's not true. And it's like, it always is true. And Chekhov does the whole, well, surely, I mean, we all agree in the importance of basic and inalienable human rights. And Azabur, who seems to be like the most like, kind of like a liberal activist lobbyist kind of person, is like, listen to the words you're saying. Inalienable human rights. And she's right to point it out. Those two phrases make it sound like, they're not for everybody, they're for humans. So,
she put in at work though, like, let me correct you on your speech. That's
exactly. But that being said, in this case, given that they're aliens and they're humans, and I like how Chang says President Company not included, and Spock like nods. Yeah, it's like, we know. So they go back and forth, and Chang says something like, well, we have a right to do what we do. I mean, we need to be free to move around. Everybody needs a little elbow room or something like that. I can't remember exactly what it says. And Kirk does, like Earth Hitler 1938, and I was like, and that is how you bring a dinner to an end.
Yeah, that was over the line. That was a dick comment.
But is it fun? Is it fun that it's Christopher Plummer who's the one who's on the receiving end of that? Because Christopher Plummer is the most famous movie before this. He's kind of doing battle with the Nazis in Sound of Music, right? So now he's kind of being put in the role of one. So,
and it's fun because then Gorkon has to be the adult in the room and be like, well, see, we have a long ways to go or whatever. And, and then they have the well, we must do this again sometime or whatever. Exit. And I like when Gorkon leans in and gives the little speech, Kirk, you don't trust me, but, it's going to be hardest for us or whatever, the Brave New World. And it's really good. David Warner just is...
It's one of his best movies.
10 out of 10.
It's one of his best movies. I mean, he really is like playing a role that is a big meaty role, and he has meaty things to say. And then my favorite thing is then they all say their goodbyes, and then Chang shakes hands with Kirk one last time. I think they shake hands, maybe they don't. But he's like, it's like a parting of such sweet sorrow, and then the bell of the ship's chimney. Have you not heard the chimes at midnight? And then he's like, holy shit, he's just going to keep going, isn't he? This is amazing. He's like a fountain of the Shakespeare quotes. It's amazing.
If Plummer accepted $1 for this movie, he's stealing because he's having so much fun. You can see the unbridled glee in his face as he's needling Kirk with the Shakespeare quotes. It's just fantastic.
And then I guess we're covering that line, the famous line, which is, that's what they say in there when they bring up Hamlet, Act 3, Scene 2, is like, you've never experienced, as Gorkon who says, you've never experienced Shakespeare until you've heard him in the original Klingon, which is a laugh riot. I mean, that is just, you can't even imagine you heard what you just heard when you're in the theater. And they say that, and then Chang's like, "Tak-ba! Tak-ba!" And they're all laughing. I think
people remember, if they remember nothing else, they remember the explosion at the start and that line. They might not even remember that it's from Star Trek 6, but everybody remembers that line.
Oh, absolutely.
Nicholas Meyer said, I didn't know this, but in the Star Trek 6 extras, Nicholas Meyer said that during World War II, the Germans were taking credit for Shakespeare. Really? And that's where he got that idea from.
I've never heard that, but that makes perfect sense, of course. That
you got to watch the extras.
I watched some of that. I was watching them this morning. Was I fully awake while I was watching them? I wasn't. That was my problem. So here's the thing. I think you hit it on the head correctly earlier when you said you cannot underestimate how important Shakespeare is to the Star Trek, the original series, as much as any of the other any of the other series or anything like that. So many episode titles, so many turns of phrases, so many plot points are Shakespeare stuff. So many of the actors are Shakespearean actors. It's really you can't underestimate that. So to play into that by like giving the guy free rein to just, all right, feel free to insert as many as you want in there. We'll see how many you can get. We'll take a bet on over and under kind of a thing.
Yeah,
it's
awesome.
So it's great,
really fun.
Say beam away.
But it's not just fun. It's not just fun, and it's not just for laughs. He's making a good point. That is what we're talking about.
And the quotes work in the situations too. I mean, that's the whole thing. So.
Yeah, the Klingons are facing the possible end of their own existence and everything. And what's the world going to look like? Yeah.
absolutely.
So after they beam away, I like who is it that says, "I doubt our behavior will distinguish us in the annals of diplomacy."
Fox says that.
And Kirk's like, "Make a note, no more Romulan ale at official functions."
He's like, he goes, "I'm going to go sleep this off. Please let me know if there's another way we can screw this up tonight."
And he goes, and then Spock brings him back to the bridge because there's an anomaly, and so they come up there, and he's like, "Spock, I got a headache. I just want to sleep." He's like, "Well, we got to do this first." And then you hear Chekhov go, "Is it a radiation leak?" And Chekhov's like, "Only the size of my head."
Well, I like this too because I always liked it in the old show when they would like wake people up. They're not just always on the bridge ready to go.
It feels like they are, but it's not enough of that. They didn't do it enough, and it's always so doing it twice in this movie. Not just Kirk, but we're going to see Sulu get the same treatment, right? I think that's great.
Yeah, I like when he, Kirk gets back and he's just starting to take off his tunic or whatever, or he's going to hit the sack, the rack, I guess you would say, on a military vessel. And it's like, captain of the bridge, and he's like, "Oh, what is it?" And then he gets up there, and Spock's like, "Hey, I noticed this," and he's like, "I'm really tired." Just like, cut to the chase.
Yep. Yeah. I got it. No more. I need to go back to Synthahol is what I need to go back to, but it's too late for that now. So then while they're talking about all this stuff, suddenly something happens that no one expected, which is you hear the telltale sound of a photon torpedo being launched, which seems weird because I will say this, because what we're going to learn, spoiler alert for those of you following at home who watch this movie, what we're going to learn is that it was not Enterprise who fired the torpedo. And I was like, there's got to be we hear the sound, so it's implying if you're in a submarine, you hear the torpedo fire, right? And it seems like if you're in a Federation ship and the photon torpedo fires, you hear it. We hear it on screen all the time because that's how the sound effects work. But they don't know whether it was them or not that fired a torpedo. It sure looks like them because we see Kronos 1 on the screen in front of us, and all of a sudden a torpedo flies up and blasts it right at the stern. And it starts to tumble, the Kronos 1 does. And they're like, "Oh shit, what happened?" And then another one fires, and that shot hits them right in the belly. And Kronos has been unshielded by 2 torpedoes, and now they have lost their anti-gravity. And it gets worse because then through blue transporter effects, implying it's a Federation ship beaming them over, 2 guys in Federation spacesuits wearing presumably gravity boots beam over, and they start laying waste to the crew of the Klingon cruiser, right? They shoot this guy, that guy. We get the cool 1991 special effects, the Terminator 2 special effects, the purple blood floating everywhere.
I thought I still like it. Yeah. I thought it was so cool at the time.
Yeah.
I liked the color of the blood. I liked the weightless blood droplets, the little globules, like bubble tea, right?
Yep.
Looks like bubble tea has been thrown out in a weightless environment. I really liked it. I thought they shot it well. It looks good. Does it look Apollo 13 weightless good? Maybe not quite, but it's real good.
Yeah.
It doesn't look like they're swinging from wires and all that. They are, but it looks great.
And the Chancellor's like, "Find Chang. Where's Chang?" We don't know yet, but Chang is not on board the ship. Which is fun. We are assuming he's on board the other ship. I assume he's not going to be on board Kronos 1 when they start shooting at Kronos 1 from his ship, the Bird of Prey, right? Spoiler.
I don't know. Maybe he was like, "I'm just going to go check out the very far perimeter of the ship. I just want to inspect that part that's furthest away from the gravity controls."
I know where the torpedoes are going to be hitting, and I'm not going to be there. So all that happens, and then while this is happening is Bedlam on the bridge, and they're like, apparently we fired torpedoes.
Hold on, Butch. Are you telling me on May 2nd you're going to say Bedlam on the bridge?
I'm only doing it to hand it over to you so you can say the word. Say the word.
Mayhem!
Mayhem on the bridge. That's right. It's our most famous channel of all of our non-Star Trek channels is Mayhem. That's right. It
should have been Schwartz in April, but it just never caught on.
Never caught on. That's right. It turns out there's more Mayhem than Schwartzen. Is what it turns out. So they the her is detecting weapons fire across there. They finally restore gravity. The bad guys, the Federation troopers walk back onto the pads and beam back over. And we see that maybe there's some Klingon blood that floats in there too, although that's Chekhov's Klingon blood, literally, because Chekhov's going to be the one that finds it later. So
That's funny.
So now Kronos 1 is coming around, and Chang comes on the screen, and he looks like he's hanging on to like a piece of wreckage in a burning part of the ship. So whatever was going on, he's on Kronos 1 now. He's like, have you lost any sense of decency, Kirk? We come to you in peace. You blatantly defile that peace. And for that, I shall blow you out of the stars. Great phrase. Great phrase, y'all.
And it looks like he's about to, because they swing around, and
Yep.
Kirk, who really should have raised the shields, in my opinion.
Even if you're going to surrender, I think you raise the shields, right? So, yeah. Well, here's the thing. Chekhov is saying, look, if they fire on us with our shields down, we will not be able to respond. And I was like, I don't know why that's true. You just fired on them with their shields down twice, hit them twice, and they're about to respond. They're about to respond. Well, because the idea of it's like their biggest, toughest battle cruiser can take multiple hits, right? I mean,
well, maybe they're using Star Trek V photon torpedoes.
Well, if I'm going back from the heady days of the board game where you would do ship-to-ship Starfleet combat called Starfleet battles, a photon torpedo causes 8 to 12 points of damage depending on whether it's a regular or overloaded one. And if there's no shields, those damage, if you hit the shields, then all the damage is taken by the shield. And if you don't, then there's like all these little systems boxes inside the ship, right? There's like 2 for the bridge and 1 for each of the 4 phasers and 1 for each of the 3 photon torpedoes and a security thing and some hull, some engines and some labs and all this stuff. And you randomly roll and see which of these things get damaged by the attack, right? So 2 photons would cause, 16 points of internal damage, and a Klingon ship is going to be able to take like 30-something before it's destroyed.
It seems like if you were at point blank range and you hit an unshielded ship with 2 photon torpedoes, the ship would look like a Dunkin' Donut with a big hole in the middle, is what I think. But
and we're going to see that later in the movie, are we? We're literally going to see that with a hole in the middle. Yeah. So I think you got scoreboard from this movie on that. So, but we'll put that on the back burner for now because So the important thing is, they're coming around, and Kirk's like telling her to surrender. We surrender! So that's how they get out of it.
Yeah. And some of this, it's a shame that this isn't the first time he's surrendered. We saw him do it in 3.
Yeah.
That's too bad. Because it does slightly lessen the impact.
Yeah.
Like, she's, like, surprised, like, but we're not that surprised. We just saw it a couple movies ago.
It happens, yeah. Although in universe time, that was years ago, but still.
Yeah.
Who knows how many times they've gotten to battle since then. Is this what we do every time we're fighting now? Is we surrender? Is that what happens? He's like, well, it's either that or bluff. What am I going to do? Actual fight? No.
Yeah, it's true.
So Kirk and McCoy beam over to Kronos 1 because it's like, well, we had a doctor, but we don't have a doctor anymore. Well, then let me try to save the life of the Chancellor. We saw that his Brigadier Curler, the big tall guy, got his arm blasted off. And several other Klingons got killed. It's interesting. The wounds feel, even their energy weapons, the wounds look like they're like bullet holes, kind of a thing. But so they look a little different. There's no vaporizing anybody in this case.
I'm sure a bunch of the crew got killed too by those 2 hits.
Yeah. Just the damage from the hits probably killed several crew, right?
Yeah.
And so they put him on the table, and McCoy, who's still where Kirk was, which is I've had too much to drink, he's like, I don't even know his anatomy. I'm just doing what I can here, right? So he goes into some damn arrest, and so he starts pounding him on the chest to get his heart going again, and it does briefly. And Gorkin reaches up and grabs Kirk's head and pulls him down and says, don't let it end this way. And then he dies on the table. He had a big gaping hole in his chest, so the fact that he died is not that surprising.
Yeah, when your chest is gurgling like a volcano, that's not good.
Yeah, so Chang immediately places Kirk and McCoy under arrest, under interstellar law, your interstellar law, for the assassination of the Klingon Chancellor.
Yeah, a little convenient that Chang had that article at the top of his brain. He was pretty quick to arrive at the handcuffs and stuff. It's almost like he knew that this was going to happen.
You do wonder what the plan was, right? What the plan was if they didn't beam over. What was their plan for ending this? Were they going to blow up the Enterprise right there? Or what were they gonna do?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, because it's unlikely that you would be like, of course, Kirk and Bones will beam over.
Yeah.
I mean, you might say we were going to board the ship and take Kirk prisoner. Okay. But it's just as likely it could have turned into the big Dukaroo, if I may Batman a little. And they could have had a space battle.
Yep.
With the fresh Enterprise against a damaged Klingon battlecruiser. I mean, I don't know how much it was thought out. But
well, I will say this: the one guy who knows the actual score is Chang, and what Chang knows, what nobody knows at this point, is that it's 2-1. It's 2-on-1. They've got another Klingon ship there, a cloaked one that can fire with cloaked.
And they have an inside person on the planet too.
So if they had to like go to town, it's 2-on-1, and the Enterprise may never figure out what's going on, right? Before
Valeris could probably jam up the phasers or something accidentally,
or she's the one firing phasers. Maybe she just misses, right? Who knows? She's in the Sulu seat, and what we've learned is it's either usually the helmsman or it's a weapons officer firing. So we don't know which version, because it switches every movie, so we don't know who's firing in this one. But we'll get there. I think we do see later. But all right, anyway, it's not Valeris who fires in the last battle, as it turns out. Spoiler, because she's no longer in her post. So now it's warp speed after the arrest. Spock takes command, notifies Starfleet headquarters, says they got to investigate as soon as they can and find out what happens so they can solve this whole thing. And next thing you know, we are in the Federation President's office, and there's the Klingon ambassador bloviating about how this is clearly an attempt on assassination, and the Federation President doesn't necessarily believe it at the start, but both Sarek, we get to see some Sarek. We don't get to see enough Sarek in this, but we get some Sarek. And
he has a terrible haircut, by the way.
Yeah, that's not good. But he's getting older, so you get a sense he just maybe his old barber died, and now you can't find a good new one. So the Romulan ambassador both agree with the Klingon. Well, technically, if we're going by ambassadorial stuff, he's right. That this is how this has to go down. He has to be tried for this or whatever. And he says this president is not above the law, says the Federation president. So we're going to move on.
Is that Nixon again that he's kind of...
Yeah, well, yeah, I think so. I mean, I don't remember that exact quote. He might have said that exact quote or whatever. I always hear him saying the American people need to know that their president's not a crook. Well, I'm not a crook. Yeah. But that's not what he's saying here. But I think he's not above the law is a famous line from history.
Isn't it amazing how nobody would bat an eyelash these days if a politician did what Nixon did?
No. I mean, we're living in a Nixon world. We just don't. He was just 40 years ahead of his time, unfortunately for him. 50, I guess. I guess he was president 50 years ago.
He was the first president of our lifetimes.
Yep, exactly. So let's see. So what is? So were you watching the version where now Cartwright and Colonel West come in with Operation Retrieve?
No.
Yeah, that's the non-theatrical version. The theatrical version didn't have this scene, but the theatrical version has Rene Auberjonois playing Colonel West. Spoiler: also will be the assassin at the end of the movie. And he has this plan that basically it's like, we're going to go in there, we'll retrieve him, and we'll set a task force in, and we'll take him off of whatever, before the trial, and they'll just and they're like, well, what happens if that starts a war? And then he's like, well, if that happens, frankly, Mr. President, we clean their chronometers. They are no match.
I'm surprised because I got the Star Trek 6 Blu-ray, and I'm surprised it's the I guess they went with the theatrical cut.
You probably would have seen it if you'd watched deleted scenes on your Blu-ray. In this case, the version I have was part of the director's cut series that came out, so they just had reinserted it is what happened. So so
I'm sure I've seen that scene. But I did not see it in my cut of the movie.
So Bob, the CNC, tells the president, "Look, these men have literally saved this planet." And the president says, "Yeah, now they're going to save it again by standing trial," which is a great line,
I
Right?
have seen that before. That line, is that from?
Oh, I know. Yeah, I know
that-
you've seen all this before. It just wasn't in the version you watched last night. But I know we've seen it before. So,
Yeah.
so now they're back on Enterprise and they're like trying to figure out how we're gonna save this to Starfleet. And this is when Valeris contributes her part of it, which is the history lesson on the Dutch factory workers or Beastie Boys soundtracks. Sabotage! Did I blow you out of the water? Did I blow you out of the stars? I think I might have knocked Rob off the podcast. Yeah. So what happens is she makes this big long line about how the Dutch workers used to throw their wooden shoes, which they called sabot, into the workings of the machinery, thereby making it so they couldn't work all day because the machinery is broken down. And they call that sabotage. Which is interesting because sabot, there's actually a type of missile that was used by the American military that was called sabot also. So
If I ever wander off like that, it just means I had to pee, Butch.
sabotage, I covered. It's all good. Yeah. So thanks for sharing the news. It's all good. All right. So they decide, yeah, well, we'll just kind of pretend like that stuff's not working, and now they have to share that news with some other people to make sure that they can languish and loiter about this part of space for a while without leaving, so they can spend some more time investigating. Right? They can't just they've been recalled and recorded to report back to Starfleet, but they can't go yet.
This is us kind of recycling Star Trek 3, which is kind of, in my mind, a demerit against this movie.
Yeah.
We've seen all we're disobeying orders, we're mucking up the Excelsior, we're pretending to, it's almost turning into like a running gag, like, you only have a 50-50 chance of the Enterprise crew obeying an order anymore.
Well, yeah. Listen,
I
agree with you. I was doing the math on that, and I'm like, okay, so let's see what happens at the end of Star Trek 3. I'm trying to think of the stories where it happens. It's definitely this one, but it's also, besides this one, it happened at the end of one of them too, where it's like we've been ordered to go back to space dock or whatever, and in this one Spock's going to say, I think the appropriate response would be "Go to hell." But then there's a generation, Star Trek First Contact, right, when they're ordered not to come back and fight in the battle, and it's Data playing the Spock role who stands up and says, "I believe I speak for the crew," and I say, "To hell with our orders."
Yeah, not to mention that Spock apparently steals the Enterprise every other week. We saw it in the two-parter, and then Strange New Worlds was like, oh yeah, actually he does this all the time.
It must be a kind of a thing where they either it's true that American audiences eat this up, or they think American audiences eat this up, because they put this in so many movies where it's like we get orders. But that being said, even if you say all the times on the original series how they would manufacture it is they would give orders there like nobody in the audience wants them to follow the orders, right? You leave your people on that planet, you get your ass to the place where you got to drop off the vaccines. We're not leaving it behind. They always manufacture it. It's like the number of times that they disobey orders or slow play orders and stuff like that is pretty staggering when you add them all together. And then
and for me, it's getting a little old.
Yeah.
It's getting a little old. Like, I got it. You want to go rescue Kirk, but we've had a catastrophic breakdown of everything and the backups. Come on, nobody's buying that. I'm over it. I wish they could have found it. I don't know what the correct answer would be, but it was like a little, here we go again.
Yep. So now let's see. So now we have that, and they tell them that they're gonna. That Ozitbor has been named the new chancellor. Her Gorkin's daughter's now the new chancellor. She's like, I hope you understand. We're going to do this peace conference again, but we're going to do it my way, which is not on Earth, not to subscribe. We're going to make it secret, so nobody's going to know where it's going to happen. and Kirk will pay for my father's death, basically is what we're going to say. So,
And were you? Because I remember in the theater getting heel vibes from her. Like I was always expecting that she was in on it.
yeah, well, that's
Spoiler, she isn't.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, Scotty really kind of sure. Scotty's like sure that she's in on it, right? He's like, she had her own father killed because it's like that's what they do. It's like so Scotty does kind of go off on that for a while. So that's probably why you get the sense, because Scotty's usually the truth teller in a lot of these things, right? And
that's true.
so now that we've confirmed that the computers don't match, that they said we have all of our torpedoes, we did not fire any, but so then they're like, look. That's how there's only two things that can happen here. Either somebody changed the logs or somebody fired the torpedoes or whatever. Either way, the answers are here. We just have to stay here. This is where Scotty says they don't place the same value on life as we do, Spock. And he's explaining why she probably had her father killed. It's because they don't place the same value on life as we do.
Now, I know they explained it, and maybe I just was missing it this time, but I was like, so why are we sure? Spock's like, because of this or this, either way, they're here.
Yeah.
But I didn't really get that. Why couldn't they be on the other ship?
Well, because the computer logs were changed. So even if it's not them, somebody on the Enterprise changed the computer logs, right?
That could be Valeris.
What they don't know about Valeris yet. See, that's the whole thing. That's the whole thing. They don't know about Valeris yet. So, because it turns out it could have been Burke and Samno, right? So that's the whole thing. So somebody's on the Enterprise that's either it's responsible for something. So now we get the trial, which is very cool. They are represented on the trial by a Colonel Worf. Did you notice that? Michael Dorn gets to play in a TOS movie.
I sure did.
As accentuating, he's been in more Star Trek than any other actor, by far, than any other actor that's ever played Star Trek. 7 seasons of Next Generation and 4 seasons of Deep Space Nine, and this movie, for crying out loud. So, and it's fun because it's a damn show trial. There's a lot of growling people up in the audience and stuff like that. My favorite part of this whole thing is that when Chang is like, Dr. McCoy, you're a veteran. It's like, what's your current medical status? He's like, well, aside from a few aches and pains, I'm not too bad. And there's one laugh from way off in the distance. And he's looking around like he's pleased with himself. And then he realizes, oh shit, nobody else is laughing. I guess I should stop.
It's hilarious.
But that moment
it really is hilarious.
Because there's a lot of Dr. McCoy in me. It's like, if I say a joke that only one person appreciates, it's worth blowing up an entire room and saying something at an inappropriate time just to get that one laugh. But basically Chang's like, yeah, either way, you were incompetent, either because you don't know the medicine or because you were under the influence of Romulan ale. You killed it. You were essentially responsible for the death of the Chancellor. So, and he's like, that's when we get that great line from D. Kelly, who's like, I tried to save him. I was desperate to save him. He was our last best hope for peace. A little maudlin, I would think, but he's about to go. He thinks he's about to get executed by the Klingons, so it's okay to get a little emotional at this point, I think. He's not going to get emotional. Kirk's not going to get emotional. That is not in his wheelhouse. So now it's Chang versus Kirk. The real villain here, James Tiberius Kirk. And they go back and forth, and he's like asking him about, did you know this and did you know that, and and how did you know about the beaming? And then he starts yelling at him, don't wait for the translation. Answer me now.
He's coming unglued when he says that.
Oh, yeah. Well, he certainly makes it look like he's coming unglued. And which is, that's great. That's a great shout back, that is. So he says, whether you were obeying or disobeying orders and then he says, were you obeying or disobeying orders when you ordered the assassination of the Chancellor?
It's a setup.
It's a setup. That's right. So meanwhile, for his part, Colonel Worf pleads clemency. He's like, yeah, all they have is circumstantial evidence. So we ask that you don't execute these people. And so the judge is like, we commute the death sentence. And the audience is unhappy. But then they sentence them to life on the penal asteroid of Rurapente. Everybody's like, oh, that's some heavy shit. Known throughout the galaxy as the alien's graveyard.
Yeah, that's not good.
Better to kill him now than to let him run, whatever. So Spock gathers his thoughts and asks to see the torpedo hit again, and they do, and they're like, it looks, that's us, right? And they're like, but we know it's not us. And he's like, well, what if it wasn't us? What if it was from below us? You know, that gravitational anomaly or radiation anomaly we saw earlier. What if that's a cloaked bird of prey? And they're like, well, but a bird of prey can't fire when cloaked. They're like, well, apparently this one can. And he pulls out some Arthur Conan Doyle to prove it. He's like, one of my ancient ancestors said that if you eliminate the impossible, whatever else is left, no matter how improbable, must be the truth. Which, by the way, not true.
So I like that and we get that Spock's half human, but it's fun because he's quoting a fictional character.
Yes.
Like he's almost saying, my pretend, super detective, fictional great grandfather Sherlock Holmes. Like I'm sure he's talking about Doyle, but still.
Yeah, can I mention why I think that's exactly what he's doing? Because at least one author thought that too. Because there's a certain author that did that. Didn't in Ishmael, the novel Ishmael, didn't they make it imply that Amanda is related to Arthur Conan Doyle or something like that?
Probably, yeah.
Of course, that book came out before this movie, so I don't know how the math works on all that stuff. But so maybe there's some links there that we're missing or whatever. So now Scotty's like, what are we supposed to do? Tell Starfleet about this? They'll say we're so desperate to exonerate the captain that we'll say anything. And Spock's like, yeah, and they're right. That's exactly what we're doing. But we have no other choice. I slapped a Viridian patch on Kirk before he left so we could track him. So we're on this case until such time as we can't be on this case anymore. And now we go to Rura Penthe, which lives up to its name as inhospitable. I always like how there's so many, asteroids with atmospheres in sci-fi. It's just not a thing. But it's cool that in this case, you don't live long on the surface. What went up to the surface didn't live long. Fortunately, is what they would say, I suppose. But so the guy comes out, the warden comes out and says, there's no escape. You can try. There's no point. The only way off this thing is you got to get outside of a shield and you got to have a ship, and none of you have that. So there's no real point in trying to escape anyway. Just sit here and enjoy your life so long as it lasts.
If you want to live, you'll work your ass off and be miserable every day. If you don't, leave.
Yep. Yeah. Leave and you'll be dead. That's right. So he gets in a fight almost immediately with some alien, but this pretty girl breaks it up. A pretty girl with feather hair breaks it up. She's Martia. Imon is very good, alien-looking, beautiful, statuesque. Yeah. We don't see anything but her face. We don't have any idea what she looks like underneath the 19 layers of clothing she's wearing. But she's smoking it's one of your cigars, right? Is that what she's smoking?
She's Swisher Sweet.
Yeah, she's Swisher Sweet.
Smoking hot.
Yeah, and she's basically there's like you guys are the two assassins that are around here, and some people want you out of the way. Basically, is what it is. So we all kind of know that, but she's kind of like they find a quick ally in her. I think she's way better than I expected her to be in this movie. You said they got a fashion model to be in this movie. I was like, yeah, that's not going to work out well. But she was really good in this movie, I thought.
She was real good. Yeah, I like her. And she has a presence about her. And like you said, she has kind of an exotic look to her.
And they give her golden eyes. Those golden eyes are hypnotic, too. I mean, I'm not going to lie. Yeah.
You remember the eyes of the chick from The World is Hollow and I Touched the Sky? And she had those weird eyes.
Yes.
Yeah, kind of like that.
Yeah, exactly. So now we get the fun galley scene back on Enterprise where they're trying to look for clues and stuff like that. And they're searching the ship for evidence of all this stuff. And they're in the galley. We see actual turkeys and actual big vats of mashed potatoes being stirred. And there is, for some reason, a small arms locker in the galley. So if you need to open up and grab a phaser and phaser something, Valeris phaser something to prove that we know that they didn't just vaporize this stuff, because any unauthorized use of a phaser on a ship is immediately recorded and logged and alarmed. And
this is another example of Valeris being a little different than your typical straight-laced Vulcaned up Vulcan.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, she's got this flair about her and this little bit of renegade to her.
Yeah, not straight
I
Vulcan.
imagine
You're right. It's unusual for Vulcan for some of the
Spock wouldn't do that. I don't think.
No.
I think it's fun that you mentioned that there's a small arms locker that eliminates a lot of I want to talk to the manager nonsense that otherwise would come up on a 5-year mission.
Yeah.
Hey, my shepherd's pie that was invented in Russia doesn't taste right. It's like, shut the fuck up. We got phasers right here. That's
right. Not taking your shit. So we get the first of these lines, I think, where he's like, he tells Scotty, by the way, the engines aren't working. Spock does, and Scotty's like, what are you talking about? He's like, Mr. Scotty, the engines are working. We got to leave. He's like, it might take weeks, sir. So Valeris looks at him and says, was that a lie? He's like, no, it was an error. Which is a callback because in Star Trek 2 we had Kirstie Alley accuse Spock of lying. He says, I exaggerated.
Who's lying? I'm exaggerating, Ovi.
But we got the best one of all of those is still coming up later in this movie. So now back on the planet, guess what? Kirk's fighting another giant alien. I call this one the guy with the knee balls.
Yeah.
So he kicks the alien in the knee, and Martia has to explain not all alien species carry their genitals in the same place, and so he gets away with that one. And so she says, "Well, meet me later, and if you're interested in a way out, I think I got a way, but we'll have to figure that out." So they're in the bunk later. Kirk and McCoy are in the bunk later, talking about that. And he's like, you ever think about the future? He's like, yeah, I'm pretty sure I was just saying our future is pretty bleak. He's like, no, I meant like the stuff we've been talking about. I didn't even give Gorkon a chance and stuff, and maybe and I would kind of regret that. And then all of a sudden Martia shows up. And she's like, yeah, I got this plan. Meet me at this one platform in the morning, and we'll break out if you got a ship. He's like, well, it's possible. I don't know. He's trying to play coy with her. And then, of course, she kissed him on the lips. And I love McCoy's reaction when it happened. He's just like, his eyes are rolling. No sooner is she gone than he's like, what is it with you anyway?
Yeah, that was funny. Darlene even laughed at that.
Yes.
Yeah.
He's like, do you think still think we're in trouble? He's like, more than ever. But they figure, okay, well, we just got to follow directions to get there. Kirk's certain that someone's going to kill again at the peace conference, and then we get speaking of captains that get woken up while they're asleep, somebody comes and wakes up Sulu in his quarters, and it's a lieutenant from their bridge played by a nameless uncredited Christian Slater, who was a big Star Trek fan and just wanted to be in it, and so they put him in this.
Everybody knows who he is, and it's enough of a cameo that it's Christian Slater. It's
Absolutely.
Not like it's in the background like Rand or something.
He's like, Starfleet wants to know if we know where Enterprise is. He's like, tell him we don't have any idea. And of course, Slater knows that that's a lie. He's like, you got a problem, mister? Okay. Yeah, nope, I don't got a problem. I'll follow orders. Yep. Nope, no problem.
No problem here, Captain.
Yep. So now we're still investigating Enterprise, and we find the Klingon blood, but we don't find the boots. But then they find some boots in Ensign Dax's quarters. No, not that Dax, the other Dax. There's a Dax from Star Trek Deep Space Nine. It's not that Dax. This is a Dax with some weird looking feet, and that comes into play because we get that great line where Chekhov is interrogating him. It's like, have you ever heard of a Russian epic Cinderella?
They kind of make our side characters look like complete morons in this movie.
Yeah, because he's not looking down.
Fun.
It's fun, but it's like him and Valeris are just like folding their arms and going, I think we just showed those guys, and her's like, they look down and it's like, yeah, he's got feet that would never fit in those boots. So it wasn't him, obviously, but it's a fun little scene. And again, it's great to have one more, a little Lady in Leningrad reference, I suppose.
Yeah.
So now we're back on Rurapente, and the next day they go down to the shaft where they're supposed to meet Martia. They look around, they don't see girl with feathered haircut at all, but they see this 7.5 foot tall alien, great ape looking guy who sounds just like her, and we find out she's a cameloid, a shapeshifter, and that she's that it's a little tiresome, but that's how she gets in and out of things. She can easily transform into a little girl that gets her out of the handcuffs for the giant thing, and now she's like, okay, let's sneak through this door, and these guys aren't looking, so let's just grab this pack and go, and they break out. Nobody's really paying attention. Again, there's no reason to. If they escape, they're going to die, so it's like the guards are like, as long as you're not trying to kill us, what the fuck we care.
Yeah.
and so they're stomping off and things like that, and they can make it to the surface, and now they've got a bit of a hike. They have to get outside the energy shield, and she seems to know how to do that. So they're just going to follow her, although she's in 7.5 foot ape form, because it's less steps when you have 7.5 feet long legs or whatever. So that we get some cool shots of stuff that I'm assuming is filled in a fjord or a glacier or something like that. Colored a little purple to make it look like an asteroid. Yeah, all that stuff. And Bones, of course, falls down and tells Kirk, "I can't go any further." He's like, "No, don't worry. We got this. I got a Viridian patch on my shoulder." He's like, "Oh, clever little Vulcan." It's kind of an echo to all our yesterdays when he's telling Spock to leave him behind. Kind of a thing.
Yeah.
So this has happened.
It's cute how he says it too.
Yeah, very cute how he says it. And so let's see. So from here, the Enterprise gets a detection that they get a detection from the patch, even though it's a long ways away. That must be some interesting stuff. That Viridian patch, I guess. Is it weird that there's a planet called Viridian 3 in Star Trek Generations, the next movie, and this is a Viridian patch? Is it weird? I don't know. Somebody fell in love with that name in the script writing. It doesn't matter. So he's a clever little Vulcan, and Enterprise detects that, so they set sail immediately for Rura Penthe, but they know that they're going to have to bluff their way through some of this stuff. And Kirk is their bluff guy, and he is not with them, so they're going to have to figure out. Spock's version of that, he says, what is now required is a feat of linguistic legerdemain and a degree of intrepidity. We're going to have to lie, because that's what he said. Let's talk our way through something. And so this scene, I heard that Nichelle Nichols didn't like the scene because she's like, oh, surely Uhura would be able to bluff her way through some Klingon, right? It's their biggest enemy. She knows some Klingon or whatever. They have some third person helping her out. Yeah, I will say it's kind of funny, where they're trying to make it. Well, we can't use a translator because they'll know if it's a translator. We got to fake being a Klingon. So
we could do this now. You have universal translators all over the ship. How about that? Or ask the computer to translate. It's ridiculous.
The first thing, you're right. They made it sound like if we use a universal translator, they'll know. But they could have just had the translator thing doing it rather than looking it up in hardcover books. And I would guess Uhura would know how to pronounce the words. And she's mispronouncing them all, but it's almost worth the whole thing, because at the end of the day, the Klingons at the listening post are like, "Well, don't take any wooden nickels," or "ha ha ha ha," and so they're laughing along with him, "ha ha." And her, when she switches it off, the look on her face like, "Oh, fuck that."
It strains my ability to set aside my disbelief.
Yeah, And she could have had that look on her face even if she had done it well, right? The payoff is the look of disgust on her face about having to do it or whatever. But the fact that she's so bad at it doesn't make her character look like she's an expert at what she's supposed to be an expert at.
Yeah, it's strictly a gag, but we've been with Uhura for 25 years. We know that she's smart. She's not the dumbest person in the room. Yeah. She's not an idiot. They don't have. I find it hard to believe that they went to the Encyclopedia of the Klingon language section and grabbed out 4 volumes. How in the hell would you expect
blow the dust off the volumes?
Ridiculous! It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
The whole thing's ridiculous.
Yeah, it is. But at the end of the day, the thing is, I suppose you could say, well, count the number of times that Uhura's had like the comedy bit on her shoulders, and I was like, well, maybe there was 1 or 2. In the original series, like, Vulcan has no moon, and she says, "I don't doubt it a bit, Mr. Spock." Maybe that's about as close as she's had to having her getting to play a gag scene is unusual, is what I'm saying. So at least
I prefer it to her dancing scene in Star Trek.
Yeah, that's exactly way better. But that being said, they don't let her. There's just it feels like they did it wrong in both movies a little bit.
Yeah, they did. They really did.
Meanwhile, they escape on the planetoid, and she explains, "Oh yeah, well," they say, "How do you know we're looking at the real you?" She's like, "Well, I just thought I'd assume a pleasing shape." And then Kirk pretty quickly after she lights some flares, Martia, that he like figures out, punches her in the face, and says, "How much are they paying you?" And there she's like, "I'm getting a full pardon for this, and it's not worth this, because like, yeah, there's no way you have all this equipment and all this stuff. It's too convenient. This is bullshit. You let us out here to get killed during an escape attempt." And so she cops to it, and then she turns into Kirk. I was like, "Woohoo! Price of the Phoenix, Price of the Phoenix, Price of the Phoenix." Doctor gave me a book, and I read Price of the Phoenix. It's so they get in a fight. It's kind of a fun fight. Now I think this is all payoff because do you remember the previews for this, the commercials for this, we see Kirk get vaporized by a laser blast in the previews, and this is designed because that can't happen, right? And when have they shown us something get blown up and it didn't actually really happen? We all thought the Enterprise getting blown up wasn't going to happen, then it did, and now we're all sure that Kirk's not getting killed, but there he is getting vaporized on screen. We just saw it, but it doesn't happen. Of course, it's because it's the fake one that gets vaporized.
Why wouldn't you shoot them both?
Because you got to gloat for a minute. I don't know. You're just about to kill.
Yes, go all Goldfinger, and like, well, sure.
Since you're all going to die anyway, I will spill the tea for you, and then they get beamed out, and they're like, "Yeah, damn it."
That's pretty funny.
Do you want us to beam me back down? He's like, "Absolutely not." So off to the bridge they go. So they got to figure out where
that's pretty funny though.
They got to figure out where the conference is going to be. Meanwhile, Scotty finds the boots in an air vent. And now that Kirk and McCoy are back, Kirk knows something about Valeris that Spock doesn't know, which is Valeris was the one who overheard his conversation that they played at his trial of him saying, I can't forgive the death of my boy. I'll never trust, and stuff like that. That's what got him convicted, and he knows that that can only come from one place, and that's Valeris.
Yeah, and that had to be a hard one for Spock because he was too close to the situation. It would have never occurred to him.
Yep. So they're on their way. They're on their way to find that out, and then they stumble across two dead bodies. The dead bodies are Burke and Samno, the two racist guys earlier that we saw her, and they're apparently the shooters. But they were killed by a phaser on heavy stun so that it wouldn't set off alarms, as Chekhov points out. And I was like, well, where'd we learn that from? It's all pointed to Valeris now. Right?
Yeah.
And sure enough, so they make a fake announcement saying, we need the court recorder to come down, take a testimony in sickbay from Ensigns Burke and Samno. And so sure enough,
this is dumb. Why? So I get that they're doing that to make someone on the crew, whoever's guilty, go, oh shit, I can't have that. I thought I killed him, but But so if they're paging to have the court reporter come to sickbay, why would you think you could sneak into sickbay and assassinate the people before anybody notices? They're in sickbay, supposedly, waiting for the court reporter.
The lights are off, right? And so when you get there, I mean, what do they think is going to happen? They get there, the court reporter is going to get there, and what do they think is going to happen? By then it's too late if they, it's enough to get her down there, and then she gets down. And she's like, "Oh, I'm lucky. I haven't started yet." Or so the lights are off.
It's terrible.
It is.
It's awful. Why would I don't get it?
And they just need to get the confrontation scene right, because then Valeris comes in. We don't know who it is, and then somebody steps right over the bed, and then the person in the bed reaches up and turns the light on. It's Spock in bed, and it's Valeris who is the person who comes in, right? And he gets out of bed and says, "You're going to have to shoot me. If you're logical, you'll shoot me." She's like, "I do not wish to do it." So he's like, what he wishes is beside the point. What he's chosen is this. And so he smacks the phaser out of her hand. He's pissed because, again, he's not logical Spock anymore. He's a bit of both.
He is as pissed as you ever see Spock.
I wrote pissed in all caps. Damn it.
Yeah.
And and Kirk says, "I just assume you don't shoot him, by the way, for what it's worth." So now we have the bridge scene, and this scene is amazing. I don't know if it's out of character for Spock or if it's something that he's feeling betrayed by her, and that's why this happens, or the circumstances being as fraught with peril for galactic peace as it is. But he's going to mind rape her on screen. And that's pretty rough. It's pretty rough.
I think this is really rough.
But that being said, of all the situations where you can see this happening, it's not just that the circumstances demand that he feels betrayed by her. And again, so he seems to be like breaking with his I would never do such a thing, and so he says, well, what we need to know, she gives up freely. She gives up freely where the conference is going to be, or not where the conference is going to be, but where the battle. Yes.
Well, she doesn't give it up freely.
I'm sorry. The stuff she gives up freely is they have a Klingon Bird of Prey that can fire while cloaked. It's a prototype. Blah blah. And then they ask, okay, well, who are your comrades and where's the conference going to be? She said, I do not remember. And Spock says, a lie. And she says a great line. This is the best one. A choice. I choose not to remember.
I can't stress enough how upsetting this rape scene is. Ooh. And it is a mind rape, for sure.
Yeah, it's brutal. So he goes over, takes her by the arm, pulls her close, puts his hand on her face. She resists, and he, pulls her in hard. And then he, starts doing their talking, and she's giving him up. He's reading it. It's Admiral Cartwright. And then it's the Romulan ambassador Nonclus, and it's
and he's moving he's digging. Yeah. He's moving his fingers around,
Yep. And now eventually he has both hands on her face and not holding her down anymore because she's so paralyzed basically by all this stuff at this point.
It's horrible. It's hard to watch my hero Spock doing this.
They show the view from the back of her head, and I thought they were going to show her head explode. I remember thinking in the theater, dude, the angle they're showing her head from, they're going to show her head explode. That would have probably.
Well, and Uhura turns away, right? Uhura turns away.
They're all horrified. Her is horrified, and it's amazing too that they're asking where's the conference, and he eventually stops, and she is shuddering and shaking and crying and whatever else. She's wrecked, and he says. And he says in his best Kirk at Spock's funeral voice, she does not know. He's emotional about it. He's emotional about it. That's what makes it good, is because he's emotionally wrecked by what they just went through also.
It's terrible. Yeah, it really is.
And then Scotty's like, well, then we're dead if she doesn't know where it's at. And this is the best line. The best line. He takes a pause and he starts walking up the stairs. He says, I've been dead before. That is so good. So good, so good. It's so good I'm doing Sweet Caroline, the version I hate. And he says, call up Excelsior, let's ask Sulu where it's at. And sure enough, there's Sulu. He's like, yeah, it's Camp Khitomer. That's where it's at. Let us know if we can help. He's like, thank you, Captain Sulu. No problem, Captain Kirk. They're really bolstering Sulu here. Sulu, I think, finally gets good stuff in this movie. I think it's great.
Yeah.
And so now,
and Scotty makes a comment about, that's a big ship, not as big as our captain. They're really pumping him up.
Yep. So it's pretty amazing. So Kirk and Spock are dining on ashes. Their arrogance, presumption got them into this. They're having a little conversation in Spock's quarters, it looks like, and Kirk acknowledges his Klingon prejudice, and Spock acknowledges his pro-Valeris prejudice. Are we so old and inflexible? This is where we've ended up, is here, kind of a thing. So, so they have a little bit of soul searching they have to do after they've done some pretty bad things in this movie, Rob. That mind rape thing is brutal to watch. It is. So, but we see the conference being set up, and we see an assassin also setting up for this. Again, depending on the version you watch, we will see exactly who's in that. It's in the version I watched, the guy Rene Auberjonois' character Colonel West is the shooter. They pull a mask off when they realize it's not Klingon blood, it's human blood. After we get there, and then the countdown. There's a countdown they're given until when they achieve orbit. Spock's given the countdown, and when they get to about a minute left, they get a beam in, a communications beam in from Chang, and Chang's like, "Can you hear me? Can you see me, Kirk? I can see you." And he goes off on this whole, be honest, this is how we prefer it. We're one warrior to another warrior. No peace in our time. Once more under the breach. And then the shooting starts, and this is I think one of it's different than the combat in Star Trek II, which is awesome. It's way better than any of the combat in Star Trek 3 and or 5, I think.
Oh, it's a great battle. It's cool.
Yeah. And the whole idea is they can't. By the time they see the ship, it's too late to fire at it. The ship gets a shot off, disappears again, moves again, and they're just getting blown to pieces. They can't lower their shields to beam down to the planet because as soon as they do, they're going to get burned. And I was like, well, once the shields are down, though. Now they have no reason not to beam down.
Well, we've got a classic boxer versus slugger.
Yes,
and the slugger just needs to land that one haymaker against the chinny boxer, but the boxer is so fast in this first round. It's stick and move.
Yeah, it's like the battle against the Orion ship in Journey to Babel, right? Except not only is it fast, it's invisible for most of the time. So they're getting blown up, and I like they go back to Excelsior, and Sula's like, we got to get there fast. He's like, she'll fly apart. Fly apart then. I love that. That's great.
That's a great line.
Yeah, and then we just get all the Chang Shakespeare you can handle, plus like 6 or 7 more. I'm constant as the Northern Star. Cry havoc. He's spinning around in the chair like a little kid. That's how much fun she's having in this movie.
He's spinning in the chair was pushing it.
Yeah.
For me, but I'll give it to him because he's been so good. But that was pushing the line a little.
Yeah. Well, he's reveling in this. He's wanted for so long to face Kirk in battle, and he's beating the crap out of Kirk. Kirk has no chance against him. At some point, there's a hull breach, and I said, it's a big one. But that we're not there. So Kirk's like, haven't we been studying gaseous anomalies? And her like, well, why? I mean, the thing's got to have a tailpipe, right? They're operating under impulse power, which means it's ionized gas that they could go find on there. So Spock and McCoy go down and perform surgery on a torpedo to make it a guided torpedo to look for ionized plasma. And then they eventually they're just about at the end of their rope, and they fire the one torpedo, and the torpedo travels in different directions. It comes zipping around. The whole action stops, and the Chang's like, "Oh, to be or not to be," and then it hits them right in the bridge.
That was very fun. It was very Hunt for Red October.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, we've armed the torpedo, and it's
Damn it, you arrogant ass! You've killed us. Yes, exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
So then when they see the explosion, Excelsior says target the explosion and fire. Between the two of them, they hit it with like 15 torpedoes, and it explodes. And the saddest thing of all of this, in terms of Star Trek and how much time and money they spend on effects, is this exact same explosion is going to happen in the next movie, Generations. They're going to completely reuse this effect. Sad but true. Yeah. Same one.
Why do they do this?
Because they blew up the model, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a cool battle. They use different angles.
Yeah.
They show how powerful the force of the ships is, and it kicks at once when ass kicking starts. It starts in earnest.
Yeah, and that just blows that cool like little dinner scene that they had, and that's where we saw Scotty reading his manuals when he finds the boots, and now that whole set gets blown all to shit because that's where that torpedo goes through. It goes through the bottom of the primary hull and out the top of it. That's a pretty amazing shot.
Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, and so but they do manage to destroy the Bird of Prey, which allows them to beam down the planet, and the assassin's almost in place, and we're listening to bloviating president, and they beam down there like trying to fight to save the president. Kirk does a jumping tackle of the president to save him from getting shot, and then Scotty shoots and kills the assassin, and Sulu arrests Admiral Cartwright. Right? So.
Yeah.
So then all this stuff happens, and then they're like, "What happened?" And Azenberg's like, "What happened?" And Kirk explains, that your father was called the future of the undiscovered country, and for some of us, it was too much to bear. The thought of it was too much to bear, and some of us are having a harder time dealing with it, but we're doing the best we can, And she says, "Well, thank you. You've restored my father's faith."
Yeah,
and then she says, and you've restored my sons, or something like that, which is
that's nice,
a great line. And then they have the three of them, Kirk and Scotty and Sulu, go up and like take the applause and stuff like that, which is cool.
Yeah.
And next thing you see the two ships leaving together. Presumably the peace talks are going to go okay. We don't really get an update on those. Treaty may be signed, we don't know. But we see the two ships as they're about to leave, and Sulu and his crew. That is fun because that was the only time they're on screen together. Sulu and Kirk were that scene there at the very, very end. The only time they're on set together, rather. They're on communications the rest of the time, so. And then we get the coda there where the two ships flying away, and Excelsior flies away. And that's when you say, Scotty says, that's a big ship. Or McCoy says it's a big ship, and Scotty says not as big as her captain, I think, which is a great line, right?
That's nice. That's a nice thing.
And they're like, and Chekhov's like, well, this is goodbye because we've been ordered to come back to get decommissioned. And so there's only one thing left to do, and that's to disobey that order. Because that's how we roll.
That's what we do.
Spock's like, I would say we tell him to go to hell. Okay, so they decide to do that. Where are we going to go? And Kirk's like, very fairy tale ending. Second star to the right and straight on till morning. That's, what that's from?
Very nice. That's nice.
You know what that's from, though? It's Peter Pan.
Yeah.
It's like it's Neverland. The second star to the right, straight on till morning, I guess. So then they sail off into the distance, and then we see the signatures, which is a very emotional thing. I remember being emotional about it in the theater.
I was emotional about it a couple days ago.
Yeah, me too. Yes, exactly. But I mean, for the first time, the last time, I was emotional about it. You're like, they're signing off. It's over. We're never going to see these people again. We're never. I can't help but continue to set up the Star Trek Las Vegas thing. We're going to see him again. We're going to see him again. We're going to see him again. It's fine. It's so good. So anyway, I love this movie when it came out. I've loved it every time I watch it. I know that there are some flaws in there. I know that, we don't get pure good guy Kirk or pure good guy Spock in this. And it makes for complicating things. But, movies dealing with real life complex things sometimes lend itself to gray areas, and they both plow the gray areas in this movie. Those two characters do.
Yeah.
So
it is interesting. They didn't phone this one in. There's a lot of complex stuff going on. There's a lot of difficult stuff, and that's what I always like, that our characters are flawed. They're not squeaky clean all the time.
Yeah.
It's really good. I really like this one. Also, I have to get ready for work. But spoiler, I think I'm going to bump this above Star Trek 4. So I'm going to have this third.
Ooh, wow. I think, well, so
that would be...
What's your list look like then?
So my list, bottom to top, number 6, I have Star Trek 5,
yep,
which is kind of a fun mess. At 5, quite a bit above Star Trek 5, I have Star Trek 3, which is growing on me. I mean, I think you made some good points about it, and I've been kind of thinking about it. I'm going to put The Voyage Home at 4.
Yeah.
This is a little bit of a drop. This shows what high esteem I hold the top 4 movies in, because there's been times where Voyage Home's been knocking on Khan's door for possible top spots.
Yeah.
So it's 4th, though. I'll put this one 3rd.
Yep.
I'm going to say I like the fact that there's crew members. It's got a great villain, and it's a perfect send-off.
Yeah.
It's got flaws, but it's excellent. I almost knocked it back down because of that stupid Uhura scene with the books. And then I've got so what is that?
You're at 2.
So this one 6 is at 3. So at 2 I've got the motion picture, and which is on the Ascent. And number 1 though, forever and ever, Wrath of Khan. How about you?
Very close. I have Star Trek 5 at 6 in last place, and then I have 4 right above that. There's a big gap between 4 and between Star Trek 4 and Star Trek 5. They're both watchable movies. I enjoy watching them both. One's just a lot less cringe than the other. Then I go Star Trek 6 in my 4th place because I have Star Trek 3 in 3rd, and I have that again. I just place the whole. The 2 of my 3 favorite Star Trek scenes of all time are in that movie. It's they're right back to back. Stealing the Enterprise and then the destruction of the Enterprise are my number 2 and number 3 favorite scenes. So, but that's what I have that at 3, and then the motion pictures at 2, and then I have Wrath of Khan still At number one, it's unassailable. I think it's
Yeah.
it's a great movie with some of the best emotional beats in Star Trek, which are better than anything in the Star Wars universe. For example, that's how you know which one of the universe is
I
better.
agree with that.
But yeah, so we're pretty close though. I mean, the idea that that we've kind of both moved on some of them over the years and stuff like that is. But again, I could watch any of these movies all the live long day if I had to.
Yes.
Even if I think some of them could use a little work here and there, it doesn't make none of them are perfect. I think Wrath of Khan's close to a perfect movie, but there's no such thing as a perfect movie, I don't think. But there's movies that are close, and Wrath of Khan feels close to me for what it's trying to do. If it's really at the end of the day the quality of the sound in that movie that really just bugs me. I was like, why does the sound so bad in this movie? Is that a weird thing to be the big criticism of? I guess it's like, yeah, but I agree.
Well, sound's important in a movie.
I agree with you that the Uhura scene is the Uhura scene is the toughest one in this movie to deal with, because it just feels so out of character and stuff. They're going for laughs and stuff like that, but it's they just kind of did her character wrong. I mean, Celia Rose Gooding in Strange New Worlds it would not be down with that. That's what I'm saying.
No,
and that's okay.
Almost unforgivable.
Yeah, but this has been quite a journey to go through the Star Trek cinematic Star Trek's experiences and ranking them and stuff like that. We have ranked them now for posterity. I don't know that means that we're locked into those spots where we rank them forever. There's still room to move, I suppose, but it'll take a pretty titanic effort to move beyond any of the 6 rankings at this point in my life, having watched them so many times. But that's where we're at. So Rob has got to get to work, so we'll sign off. We will digitally apply our signatures to this podcast, as it were.
Yeah.
And sign off now. And so, Rob, if you would not mind signing us out as you always do on our Star Trek podcast.
Captain, there be whales here. Oh, sorry. It's Live Long and Podcast.